Chapter 1399. The Saint Spirit World. At the very center of this world, there was a divine mountain. The center of the Pantheon Empress Church in a mortal world was built on the peak of this mountain, and it was surrounded by other mountains. As the sovereign of the gods, she naturally enjoyed this honor. At this point, a resounding chime resounded across the entire Holy Church. In the Grand Holy Church, 8 archbishops and 3 cardinals were kneeling on the ground, sincerely praying towards the statue of the Grand Empress. It wasn't until they finished chanting the entire chapter of Revelation of Atonement that they slowly stood up. At this point, an old man wearing a white robe descended from above. Everyone bowed in unison. "We greet your Excellency the Pope. May you bask in the Empress' glory and spread her majesty in the mortal realm." The old man waved his hand and spoke. "No need to be so polite. The Empress bell of retribution of fate has been rung. You must act now." One of the cardinals was confused. "Your Excellency the Pope, I remember the last time the bell of retribution of fate was triggered was due to a world-ending war countless years ago. What exactly is going to happen this time?" On his left and right, the big shots all revealed nervous expressions. Only when something angers the Empress will the bell of retribution of fate automatically ring. The bell of retribution of fate has been silent for far too many years. What exactly is going to happen this time? Under everyone's stares, the Pope's expression suddenly became strange. He slowly spoke. "The bell of retribution of fate is engraved with 8 divine characters, each representing 8 calamities. This was the trigger condition that the Empress set up according to her prophecy when she created this bell. Once one of these 8 calamities appears, the bell will ring. The corresponding divine characters of the calamity will also give off a divine glow to inform us of the situation." Everyone nodded, but they were even more confused. This was something that everyone already knew, so why did the Pope specifically mention it? The Pope sighed deeply and spoke. "When I went to check the situation of the bell of retribution of fate, I found that there was a divine prophecy on the bell." "What?" Everyone exclaimed in shock. Who would have thought that the Grand Empress had already set up such a hidden divine prophecy countless years ago? What exactly happened? Everyone felt uneasy. Seeing that, the Pope knew that he had to explain this. "Listen carefully. I will now summon the divine prophecy." With a solemn expression, he recited, "Mortals look for the gods they can serve during the coming-of-age ceremony, and the devil is also hiding among them." Its eyes moved between the King of Dawn and the Pantheon Empress, and finally decided to hide under the protection of the Empress. The devil's plan will not succeed, and it will not receive the Empress's grace. Instead, it will activate the prophecy on the bell of punishment, and everyone will be on their guard. "Go, servants of the goddess. You must find that devil and purify it with the eternal holy fire." After reciting the divine revelation, the Pope took a deep breath and continued. "Immediately arrange for people to go to the 2 great empires, the 9 dukedoms, over 100 territories, almost 1,000 counties. No matter where that devil is hiding, you must find it and cleanse it. This is the Empress's oracle." Everyone knelt on the ground and said loudly, "We will obey the oracle." At this moment, the huge church was like an awakened beast of war, entering a state of frenzy. Its terrifying power was like tentacles that reached out to every corner of the Saint Spirit World. On the other side of the main road, an insignificant location on the map, the village of Ramon, the biggest house in the village. The Pantheon Empress? The god you've decided to worship and serve is the Pantheon Empress? The Viscount envoy asked. His gaze fell on Gu Qing-shan with a bit of disdain. What a country bumpkin, saying that the god he wants to worship is the Pantheon Empress, Renedal. As a mortal, how could he casually call the deity's true name in such an undignified situation? Whatever, this brat is lucky. The Pantheon Empress is the sovereign of the gods. According to the Deity Chronicle, after establishing the church, this deity had already left to do other things in the boundless void. The divine runes and power she left behind were powerful, but they were all for mortals to use. She isn't in this world, so this deity shouldn't have heard what this brat said just now." "That's right," Gu Qingshan replied. The Viscount envoy continued. "Very well, I will perform the faith ritual for you, but I must remind you from now on, you can only call out the deity's name, not their true name. Only deities can call them that. Mortals doing so might anger the deity." Gu Qingshan realized and spoke with a grateful expression. "Thank you, Sir Envoy, for your reminder." The Viscount envoy nodded. "Although he's a country bumpkin, he's a sharp one." "That's good." The Viscount envoy opened his bag and carefully took out a book made entirely of metal. Gu Qingshan looked at the book in her hand, then at the other party's book. Aside from the material, the two books were exactly the same. The envoy explained, "This is the true handbook of the deities. It contains the will of the gods. Other than the churches, only Sir Viscount has a copy in the entire prefecture." Gu Qingshan commented. "Sir Viscount is truly impressive." The envoy smiled and said, "Come, place your hand on the book, recite the name of the deity you wish to believe in, sincerely pray, and you will become a follower of the deity." Gu Qingshan placed her hand on the book as instructed, then recited the words from her memory. "O Grand Empress of the Pantheon, I, a tiny and lowly being of the mortal world, desire to become your follower." A moment of silence. A flash of light suddenly erupted from the book, knocking Gu Qingshan's hand away. Gu Qingshan was also struck and couldn't help but take a few steps back. The Viscount envoy's expression warped and screamed, "Guards! Guards, hurry!" Instantly, 8 fully armored knights abruptly appeared. They exuded intense, killing intent as they drew their weapons and surrounded Gu Qingshan. Crow wanted to draw his sword right away, but was stopped by Gu Qingshan's hand. Gu Qingshan glanced at the knights around her and calmly asked, "Sir Envoy, what's going on here?" The Viscount envoy's expression was grim as he replied in a low voice, "The deities would never reject the faith of mortals, unless they were wicked entities that were trying to fool their way through. Only then would the deities reject them." Gu Qingshan froze. He glanced at the soul points number that was continuously decreasing in the void of space and chuckled. Could there be a mistake somewhere? The deities had died and turned into the current laws of the world. They welcomed my soul points contribution, hoping that I would be able to help them, and even gave me a blue sword pattern as proof of my existence. Why did they insist that I'm a wicked entity? It should be the opposite. This doesn't make sense. Perhaps the problem lies with the Grand Empress of the Pantheon. I have some sort of connection with Boss. Perhaps her needles will notice this and rejected my faith. With that in mind, Gu Qingshan patted Crow's hand and whispered, "Money." Crow took out his bag of money and put it in Gu Qingshan's hand. Gu Qingshan tossed the bag of money to the Viscount envoy and spoke with a relaxed expression. "Sir Envoy, just as you said, I might have angered the deity by calling her by her true name. So I want to try out other deities and prove my innocence." The Viscount envoy received the bag of money, silently squeezed it, then understood. "Very well. Since this matter is related to wicked entities, I can't afford to make any mistakes." He stared closely at Gu Qingshan, then took out a pure white stone from his bag. "I'm the Viscount's chief priest, so I have a right to conduct the final examination on you." While saying so, the Viscount envoy tossed the pure white stone to Gu Qingshan. "This is the detection stone of the gods. It's specifically used to determine the attributes of all living beings. If you're a heretic, it'll immediately give you a definite reminder. If you're innocent, it'll show you your faith aptitude. Road, this is your final chance to prove your innocence. Please hold it tightly." Gu Qingshan didn't say anything else and held the white stone tightly. A second later, the void of space seemed to be filled with the voices of countless children devoutly singing a hymn. A resounding explosion suddenly resounded. A solemn and vast holy white light erupted from Gu Qingshan's body, piercing through the roof and into the sky. Chapter 1400. Like a reverse waterfall, the holy white light shot all the way to the sky. Gu Qingshan's body was bathed in the light, almost like a legendary god. "Let go of that rock," the Viscount envoy shouted. Gu Qingshan followed his order and let go of the white rock. Instantly, All the supernatural phenomena and voices disappeared. The room returned to silence. "Am I a pagan?" Gu Shan asked. Around him, the 8 knights who originally surrounded him had sheathed their swords and bowed to him. "No, of course you aren't a pagan," the Viscount envoy excitedly declared. "Then my faith is—" While Gu Shan was talking, he suddenly stopped. The Pantheon handbook, made entirely out of metal in the Viscount envoy's hand, suddenly gave off a white light that enveloped Gu Shan's body. "You are the protector of the divine kingdom and the mortal realm, the executor of the power of the gods, the believer and servant of the condemnation codex," the Viscount envoy declared. Following the Viscount envoy's declaration, the white light abruptly turned into a card that appeared in front of Gu Shan. A blank card. Looking at this card, Gu Shan felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. He then turned to the Viscount envoy and asked, "Can I have this card?" "Of course you can. This card is hidden deep within the origin of laws. It has been many years since it appeared," the Viscount envoy replied. "That's true. I don't think I've heard of the Church of Condemnation," Gu Shan tried asking. "That's right," the Viscount envoy spoke emotionally. "The slaughter and evil of mortals, as well as the struggle and war of the deities. Whenever heaven and earth are unable to decide, the condemnation codex manifested from the power of all the deities would carry out the judgment, and you are the only condemner to appear in the last 700 years from now on. You will be the representative of the gods' condemnation codex in the mortal realm, carrying out the gods' precepts, judgments, and punishments. You must prepare yourself. The Viscount will definitely take you in as his son-in-law." Gu Shan didn't answer. When he held the blank card in his hand, his own image appeared on the card. He held 2 swords in his hands and quietly floated in the air. This was him as a card. All of a sudden, lines of glowing text appeared in the void. "Identity verified. You've activated a condemnation codex bestowment card from the inner plane. This is a card that has been waiting for you for countless years. Only a condemnation card like yourself can use it. With this condemnation codex bestowed card, your condemnation codex will fully awaken." Gu Shan was stunned. "Why is it like this?" he asked quietly. The war god Ui replied. "As you hold the title of the cherub of condemnation of the inner plane, the gods could not accept your faith. So as soon as they saw this title, they immediately sought your help. Even though you are still so weak, they were still willing to guide you here, hoping to borrow your power to fight against the plague, the monsters, and the wraiths." Gu Shan fell silent. From the void of space, a palm-sized black leather booklet silently appeared and hovered in front of Gu Shan. Lines of glowing text quickly appeared in the void of space. "Frowny face, the condemnation codex has awakened. From now on, you are the god you worship, as well as the representative of the god you worship in this world." Gu Shan received the booklet and flipped to the first page, only to see 2 lines of text. "Owner of this codex. Road, alias. Beneath the stars, above the earth, you who wield the codex are the same as wielding the authority of condemnation." Then she flipped to the next page. There were 2 card slots here, one of which was empty with 2 lines of text written below. "Frowny face, rare divine artifact. Condemnation of the inner plane, crimson demon divine spear. This weapon carries your will, currently suppressing the apocalypse door knockers outside the reality gate at a certain location." Gu Shan looked at the second card slot. There was a new card here, depicting a woman surrounded by a withered yellow mist, kneeling on the ground and praying devoutly. In the sky above her, a man with a pair of wings of light spread out from his back appeared compassionate and silently listened to her prayers. Gu Shan took out the card. Divine Word. Cleanse. Activating this card will dispel all controlling powers that attach themselves to the deities and living beings. Once you hold the condemnation codex in your hand and chant the incantation, you'll be able to activate this card. What a powerful card. Gu Shan suddenly realized, when Little Dust fought me for the first time, she used a single card to seal my weapon. That's extremely powerful. So even in the inner plane, condemnation cards are synonymous with power. Gu Shan sighed, then put the card back and flipped to the next page. He found that he couldn't turn to the next page. A line of glowing text appeared. Frowny face, only by becoming stronger will you be qualified to wield more condemnation cards. So that's how it is. Gu Qingshan silently put the black handbook away and looked at the Viscount envoy. The other party was carefully observing him. Why do I feel like your gaze is a bit different? Gu Qingshan smiled and said, a condemnation knight is rare and has a bright future. So Road, your good fortune has come, the Viscount envoy said. He walked up to the wall, took out a short cane, and knocked on the wall. A door appeared on the wall. The Viscount envoy stepped aside and said, let's go. The Viscount has already been informed of what happened here. He will first confer a title on you, then personally notify the Church of Condemnation. This church doesn't have a branch in the duchy, so you might need to stay in the Viscount's manor for a few more days. While you're at it, see which young lady's personality you're compatible with. Gu Qingshan and Crow exchanged glances. The Viscount envoy was an experienced man, so he immediately said, your future isn't limited to just being a baron, Road. I hope that you'll be careful with your marriage. The heir suddenly became silent. Me? With him? Crow pointed at himself, then at Gu Qingshan, his expression full of killing intent. Ah, you've misunderstood. I don't have that kind of relationship with my knight. Gu Qingshan stopped Crow and explained in a low voice. The Viscount envoy glanced at Crow. Why would such a beautiful woman stay by your side? How could it not be that kind of relationship? Look, after being seen through, this woman is pouting cutely, still a bit angry from embarrassment. Whatever, this is a young man's business. The Viscount envoy tactfully didn't say anything else. Fortunately, under Gu Qingshan's fierce glare, Crow managed to restrain himself from attacking. Gu Qingshan sighed in relief and said, let's go. He started walking towards the door. Crow followed behind him. The 8 knights sheathed their weapons and also followed behind. Suddenly, Gu Qingshan stopped at the door. What is it? The Viscount envoy asked. Wait a moment, Gu Qingshan said. He released his inner sight and coiled it around his left wrist. However, he saw that the deep blue sword pattern had already turned into a burning divine character, causing him to feel a slight pain in his wrist. The entire world abruptly faded away. Darkness returned. At the very next moment, Gu Qingshan found herself standing in the middle of a vast sea of stars. The world's spirit manifested in thousands of voices that spoke in unison. Stranger, the first invasion of the plague world has begun. Location is Ramon Village. Repel them. Use their corpses to send a warning to the entire world. After completing this mission, we shall first acknowledge your position and grant a bit of power to the world's testimony. Instantly, the sea of stars faded away. Gu Qingshan found herself back in her room. A long howl resounded from outside. Following that, the sounds of crying, screaming, running, and fighting erupted all at once. Gu Qingshan released her inner sight to check. 2 people wearing Yixia masks had grown 7 to 8 legs on their bodies, rushing into the crowd like spiders and madly slaughtering them. Infected, and they're from the Wraith Realm. Who would have thought? The plague apocalypse was the first to infect the Wraith Realm. Sir Envoy, something has happened in my village. As the mayor, I have to take a look. Gu Qingshan wielded about her hand, then disappeared from the room in a flash. Crow also left with her. The Viscount envoy's expression changed a bit and muttered, strange, what happened to those 2 wraiths? Why did they become like this, and they even dare to kill our people? Young Master Road is still young. He might be in danger. He made a gesture. The 8 knights also disappeared from the room with him. Chapter 1401. The jet black, 5-legged monster opened its mouth wide and swallowed a human head into its stomach. Oh, how wonderful! How wonderful! The wraith monster uttered a resounding roar with a human voice. After eating the human head, its whole body wriggled up and down, and another long leg grew out. The 6-legged human-faced monster looked up, searching through the fleeing crowd, and quickly locked onto a certain girl. Ah, such a fragrant smell! Could it be a believer of the goddess of flowers and spring water? The monster smirked, then abruptly let out a cruel, high-pitched laugh. It must be delicious. A second later, a faint shadow flashed. The monster appeared in front of the girl, its two blade-like legs stabbing towards her. The girl panicked and shouted, "Frost Spring!" A cold current appeared out of nowhere and struck the six-legged human-faced monster's body. The monster's body leaned back a bit, then stopped. It looked down at the girl from above and casually spoke. "That's all? You really are the lowest form of believer. Your greatest value is to provide a bit of power for my evolution." While it spoke, the monster reached out its four legs and caught the girl. It opened its mouth full of tiny, sharp teeth. All of a sudden, the sound of air being torn apart resounded in the wind. 5 blue-white arcs of lightning struck its head. The monster staggered from the attack. The power of the lightning caused its entire body to twitch and freeze in place, unable to move at all. Lightning thaumaturgy, dream jolt. Gu Qingshan put her bow away and shouted, "Crow!" Right at this moment, a black figure flew through the sky and landed on top of the monster's head. The female knight wielded a rapier, stabbing it deep into the monster's head at an extremely slow speed. "Explode," she spat out a single word. Boom! Flames shot to the sky. The monster's gigantic body crashed into the ground, no longer breathing. Crow, on the other hand, had already retreated several dozen meters away with the girl in her arms. "Beautiful girl, may I invite you for dinner?" Crow looked down at the girl in her arms and displayed her usual charming smile. The girl felt grateful and replied, "Thank you for saving me. Of course you can. Auntie." Crow's expression froze. Gu Qingshan turned her head away and put the arrow back on the bowstring. The longbow in his hand was one of the 3 items in the chest. It was the best bow in the town, and it was very fitting for the mayor's identity. There was still one monster left. Gu Qingshan was silent for a moment. Then her hands suddenly moved quickly. Swish, 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 swish. Archery, chaotic dance. 7 or 8 arrows flashing with lightning streaked across the sky in irregular arcs, all of them shooting towards the monster. The monster stretched out its long legs and knocked away 5 arrows, but there were still 2 arrows stuck in its body. The monster immediately convulsed, unable to move for a moment. Lightning God Art Dream Jolt. This divine ability had always been very useful. 8 knights suddenly appeared and rushed forward. With extremely clean slashes, they dismembered the monster on the spot. "Knight, it's someone from the Viscount Manor. Young Master Road has also made his move. The monster has been killed. We're saved." The crowd cheered. The Viscount envoy appeared from the void of space, standing next to Gu Qingshan. "Young Master Road, do these kinds of monsters often appear in your town?" he asked. "Never. And these people are clearly from the Wraith Realm. I just don't know what happened to them," Gu Qingshan replied. The envoy fell into thought. "How strange," he muttered. Gu Qingshan reminded him. "From what that monster said just now, we can tell that it still remembers everything that happened when it was still a wraith." The envoy nodded. "It seems they ran into some sort of misfortune." A bit like Dash, the envoy turned his head and looked at the crowd who were watching the show from afar. He asked loudly, "Are any of you believers of the Lord of Plague?" No one answered. The envoy then asked, "What about the Torment Serpent and the Maiden of Pain? Are any of you believers of these 2 deities?" Everyone exchanged glances. An old man gathered his courage and replied, "Sir, we're all farmers. We usually worship the deities of dawn, earth, and spring. None of us believe in the deities of death." The envoy also felt a bit helpless and turned his gaze back to the monster's corpse. If there were believers of the Lord of Plague, they would be able to tell what kind of poison these 2 wraiths were afflicted with. But for a small farming town, it would be a bit difficult to find such believers. The envoy turned to Gu Qingshan and said, "Very well, I'll bring these 2 corpses back to the prefecture. While investigating the cause, I'll also notify the people of the Wraith Realm. Perhaps they might know something. Young Master Road, what do you think?" "I'm very grateful to have received your assistance in the matter of Ramon Town," Gu Qingshan said. The envoy nodded, walked forward, and began to order the knights to collect the monster's corpse. As Gu Qingshan was about to follow to take a closer look at the corpse, he felt an intense pain from his wrist. The blue pattern once again burst into flames. Thousands of hurried voices resounded in his ears. "Frowny face, an unexpected situation has occurred. A tiny fragment of the monster's world had suddenly intruded your location. From a dimensional perspective, it will overlap with Ramon Town for about 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, this fragment will continue to float forward. The overlapping effect between it and Ramon Town will disappear. Attention, you must ensure your own survival, as well as the survival of your people as much as possible. Overlapping worlds. Gu Shan drew an arrow, knocked it on the bowstring, and cautiously observed his surroundings. The sky was alternating between night and day. Clouds occasionally appeared and completely disappeared at other times. On the ground, various illusory scenes were slowly becoming solid. Monsters! Gu Shan's heart tightened and shouted, "Militia! Where are the militia?" A group of farmers parted the crowd and stepped forward. They held various weapons in their hands and loudly replied, "Young Master Road, we heard that there were monsters eating people, so we immediately gathered and rushed here." Gu Shan's gaze swept through these people. Indeed, this was one of the strongest worlds, but these people were only the most ordinary of farmers. Perhaps they were experts in farming, or perhaps they were capable of dealing with some wild beasts, but it was still far from enough to rely on these people to fight against truly terrifying monsters. Gu Shan immediately ordered, "Gather everyone in the town and take refuge in the disaster shelter. Go now." When they first explored this land, there were many wild beasts. To better defend against the ferocious beast attacks, the first group of pioneers worked together to create a sturdy disaster shelter. The farmers were all stunned. It's been many years since I've been to that place. Furthermore, wasn't the monster already killed? All of a sudden, a gigantic foot appeared from the void of space and stomped heavily on the ground. Bam! Everyone was shaken off the ground. Large numbers of houses collapsed from the impact. The foot was as large as 2 houses, with no end in sight. As it stomped on the ground, it disappeared into the void of space, disappearing without a trace. This scene stunned everyone. Gu Shan's sense of unease was becoming stronger. Quite obviously, what happened just now was the sign of overlapping worlds. Once they completely overlapped, the owner of the foot just now would appear. "Militia, heed my order, go. If anyone dares to screw up at this point, I, Road, swear that I will hang them in front of everyone." Gu Shan sternly shouted. The farmers trembled as if they just woke up from a dream. They immediately turned around, loudly calling for the villagers to head towards the disaster shelter. "What's the situation?" Crow came over and sent his voice to ask. "The overlapping worlds will last for about 10 minutes, Gu Shan replied. Crow also appeared cautious. The Viscount envoy brought 8 knights and walked next to Gu Shan. "Young Master Road, you seem to know something," Gu Shan casually replied. "Of course, there have been more and more strange occurrences recently. Today, I even found a giant wolf that I've never seen before in the wilderness. My knights and I had to use everything we had in order to kill it." The Viscount envoy appeared cautious and asked, "What do you think the situation is? Is it the prelude to another duchy's invasion?" "No, I think it's even worse than that," Gu Shan replied. The Viscount envoy glanced at the collapsed buildings, then at the monster corpses on the ground, asking, "Do you think we need reinforcements?" "If we do, come immediately," Gu Shan replied. The Viscount envoy drew his short staff without hesitation and lightly tapped the void of space. He quickly chanted, "I, the priest of the god of war, hereby summon the duchy's 5th border guard," requesting immediate reinforcements. A few moments later, the void of space opened up, revealing a fully armored man. He looked at everyone and declared with a cold and stern voice, "I have accepted your summons. The 5th border guard is currently on their way, arriving in 30 seconds, ready to engage in battle at any moment. However, I must remind you, if you summon the duchy's border guard, only to be found to be a false report, not just you, but even your Viscount will be severely punished." All was quiet. The knights of the Viscount prefecture gulped nervously. The Viscount envoy maintained his calm and pointed at Gu Shan. "This is the mayor, as well as a newly awakened condemner. He is requesting your assistance." "Condemner? Condemner?" The man glanced at Gu Shan and took off his helmet. He was a ferocious-looking man with an expression full of killing intent. He looked at Gu Shan, observed her for a bit, then loudly declared, "A condemner! How rare! Why are you looking for trouble with our border guard?" "I'm not looking for trouble," Gu Shan spoke with a serious expression. "I have an emergency here. I'm afraid that monsters will soon attack the town. The militia won't be able to deal with them." The ferocious-looking man walked forward. The cold expression on his face slowly disappeared. "So that's what it is. You should have told us earlier. We brothers will definitely help you deal with it." The ferocious-looking man patted Gu Shan's shoulder and enthusiastically said. Chapter 1402. Gu Shan looked at the man. A round face, a large beard, a scar on the outside of his left eye that seemed to have been cut by some sort of weapon, a man of around 20 years of age. There was an insignia emblazoned on his pauldron, a black background with yellow patterns, a shield shaped like a lion and an eagle. After searching through her memories for a bit, Gu Shan recalled the origin of this insignia. This was the insignia of the duchy's military minister, Count Heath. In this world, the clans of the duchy revolved around the deity they worshipped, absorbing those of the same faith to become a part of their organization and work for them. In other words, this man was a knight of the Count's manor. Gu Shan tried asking, "How may I be of service, Your Excellency?" "Ahaha. It's nothing. My family, sir, has a few troublesome matters to deal with. I was thinking that if you can mature for a few more years and learn that technique from the Condemnation Codex, you might be able to help us," the man answered honestly. So that's what it was. Seems like they've already asked around and found out that only a condemner can solve their problem. Gu Shan smiled and replied, "As long as it's not something evil, I can accept it right now." The man was overjoyed and said, "Young Master Road, I know of you, but I didn't know that you become a condemner. I am the knight captain of the Heath family." More, he pointed behind him. Rows of neatly armored warriors appeared from the void one after another. "These brothers are my subordinates. We belong to Count Heath's second night group. We were selected to guard the border near your area this year." Gu Shan greeted them one by one. As Moore was about to say something else, he and Gu Shan both went silent. Everyone looked up, only to see a crimson shadow slowly descending from the sky. This shadow covered the entire sky, causing everyone to feel an inexplicable sense of anxiety. "What is this? Have you ever seen such a thing before?" Moore asked. "We don't have such a thing here," Gu Shan replied. The Viscount envoy also scowled. "Such a gigantic shadow. What exactly is?" He abruptly went silent. Two circular, blood-red rays of light appeared from the phantom and directly hit the stone floor in front of everyone. Sizzle, 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 sizzle. Peepa! The ground gave off a cracking sound, layer by layer, turning into fine powder. The two blood-colored lights moved together, sweeping back and forth in the small town. Everywhere the light passed, everything transformed into ash and vanished on the spot. "What kind of spell is this?" Crow couldn't help but shout. Moore abruptly turned around and looked at one of the knights. "I remember you're a believer of the god of secrets and truth." The knight was sweating profusely and his face was pale. He said while trembling, "Sir, I've already checked. This is a gaze. At the end, he couldn't help but cry out involuntarily. There was dead silence. His gaze. In other words, the crimson shadow that covered the sky was actually some kind of creature. Everyone couldn't help but look up again. In the sky, the crimson shadow was still scanning the entire town. It seemed to be looking for something. As the worlds overlapped, its body gradually solidified, almost as if it was about to descend from another world. Moore gulped and muttered, "His gaze alone is so powerful. Damn it. What exactly is this?" Gu Shan's mind turned and silently held the earth sword. At this point, no one was paying attention to him. Gu Shan held the earth sword tightly, looked at the crimson shadow, and focused his mind. A line of glowing text quickly appeared on the war god. UI, frowny face activating. Earth's choice. To completely eliminate this extinct monster of infinite worlds will consume the following soul points. Gu Shan was surprised. This is unmeasurable? This was the first time he had ever heard such an explanation from the war god Ui. Gritting his teeth, he let the earth sword go, allowing it to disappear into the void of space, and put his hand on his inventory bag. If it really doesn't work, he was prepared to ignore everyone else's shock and draw the bow of withering souls. This was a dreamscape soul artifact that had the power to corrode all things. Perhaps it could still be used. In the void of space, the crimson shadow had slowly turned from blurry to clear. He could already see its body, which seemed similar to a human's. It was looking down at the town. The civilians of the town had all gone to the shelter, so there was nothing on the surface that could attract its attention, except the giant bloody eye slowly moved, leaving 2 long streaks of bloody light in its wake as it attacked Gu Qingshan's group. Everything in its path was destroyed by the bloody eye, leaving only 2 bottomless ravines on the ground. Holy Mother above, how are we supposed to win against this monster? Someone muttered in a low voice. The town space has been sealed. We can't escape. Another knight exclaimed in shock. Moore's expression was unprecedentedly solemn, holding the clan's emblem in his hand as he hurriedly said something, apparently to pass on a message. He suddenly put the emblem away and shouted, "We can't escape. Everyone, prepare for battle." Everyone drew their weapons. All of a sudden, the giant, bloody, humanoid figure abruptly looked up. The 2 streaks of bloody light on the ground quickly left the town and shot towards the boundless darkness of the night. The humanoid figure seemed to have noticed something and disappeared in a flash. It had left. Everyone had already prepared themselves to fight to the death, but the monster simply vanished without a trace. A second later, Gu Qingshan and Moore both flashed and disappeared. A black streak of light flew through the night, passing where they originally stood. The black streak of light struck a wall and slowly manifested. It was a whole black carapace. Its head consisted of a single pair of large pincers full of sharp teeth. Save, save. It spoke to everyone. Everyone fell into a state of complete confusion. What exactly is going on? Seeing that no one reacted, another black streak of light descended from the void of space and fused with the black carapace. The carapace coiled around itself and slowly disappeared, leaving only a thick mass of black ink where it was. The mass of black ink suddenly turned into a pair of pincers that tore at both sides. What is it doing? Crow couldn't help but ask. A second later, a large hole was ripped open in the void of space. This hole was filled with murky water, making it impossible to see what was inside. Following the wind, a dark, evil, and rotten aura drifted out from the hole. The wall that the pair of pincers attached itself to quickly turned into a crazily writhing wall of flesh. Everyone had never seen such a thing before, so they all held their breaths. But Gu Qingshan knew that the other side must be the extinct monster world. He silently released his inner sight to look into the hole. The hole seemed to be a deep ocean. Within the boundless murky water, there was a crimson shadow that connected heaven and earth. It was the monster from before. Its hand was as large as a mountain, holding a struggling black shadow. 2 blood-red glows shone through the murky water to illuminate the black shadow, showing that the crimson shadow was staring at the black shadow, causing the black shadow to reveal its true form. It was a giant crab with a carapace full of sharp black spikes. The giant crab was madly struggling, but couldn't escape from the crimson shadow's grasp. I've been waiting for you. Save me. For some reason, it was able to sense Gu Qingshan's inner sight and spoke into Gu Qingshan's inner sight. Gu Qingshan sighed. Me saving you? Never mind if I have the ability or not. I won't be able to survive if I provoke that crimson shadow. I'm sorry, I can't do it either. I'm not a match for it, Gu Qingshan sent her voice. As he was about to retract his inner sight, the giant crab abruptly exploded. It quickly spoke. I'm hiding here because you're the only one who can save me. I'm on your side. Please help me. I will definitely repay you. Gu Qingshan shook his head and retreated his inner sight from the hole. Seeing that he was about to leave, the giant crab suddenly sent its voice. "Wait a minute. I have a message for you. You must save me, Gu Qin Shan." Gu Qin Shan was completely stunned. The extinct monster world. This world was filled with monsters that couldn't even be seen in the space vortex. Why does it know my name? Could it be a parallel world version of me? Gu Qin Shan glanced at the crimson shadow, gritted his teeth, and retreated. Outside, everyone was still on high alert. "Don't come any closer. This hole is too strange. It should be another world on the other side," more shouted. Gu Qin Shan silently stood still. Even when the war god Ui gave him the Void War God quest, he didn't feel this unimaginable. Too powerful. That crimson shadow is too powerful. Even if the giant crab brought me a message from another parallel world version, there's nothing I can do to save it. The final result would most likely be both of us being killed by the crimson shadow. While he was thinking, his gaze was suddenly attracted by something. A line of numbers was jumping on the war god Ui. 3:59, 3:58, 3:57. Gu Qin Shan couldn't help but ask, "What is this?" The war god Ui replied, "A countdown of 10 minutes. When the countdown reaches 0, the fragments of the extinct monster world will break free from the overlapping effects and will no longer be able to return to the village." Gu Qin Shan froze and looked at the number again. 3:45, 3:44. Wait a minute. It's not over yet. Gu Qin Shan abruptly released his inner sight into the hole again, diving into the murky seawater, only to see that the crimson shadow was doing everything it could to attack the black, spiky crab in its hand. The giant crab was barely able to block it, but was still held tightly in its hand, unable to move. But it didn't give up right away. Instead, it shot out a few sharp spikes that gave off a black glow, causing the crimson shadow to hesitate and pause its attacks. But after shooting out those spikes, the giant crab was clearly weakened. "Try your best to hold on for a bit longer. I only have one chance to save you," Gu Qin Shan's voice suddenly came. Hearing that, the giant crab regained its composure and continued to block the crimson shadow's attacks. "How much longer?" "Soon." "How much longer?" "A bit longer. Just hold on for a bit longer. I can't hold on much longer. 20 more seconds. Farewell. I'm going to die. I'm coming." Following her inner sight, Gu Qin Shan suddenly stabbed the wooden bow into the ground. On the war god Ui, there were only 10 seconds left before the two worlds overlapped. The first second, Gu Qin Shan's figure flashed and entered the hole in the seawater. Shanu just attracted its attention for a bit, then immediately returned. "Yes, Gongzi." The fourth second, Shanu leapt into the air. Instantly, boundless black fog enveloped Shanu. She turned into a dragon and abruptly crashed into the crimson shadow. The crimson shadow immediately raised its head and looked at the demon dragon cautiously. Taking advantage of this brief moment, Gu Qin Shan landed in front of the black spiky crab, held it down with her left hand, and took out a black leather book with her right. The sixth second, at this point, Shanu's black dragon form had already disappeared. She only needed to draw its attention to complete her mission. In the blink of an eye, she had teleported back to the small town. Gu Qin Shan quickly chanted, "The life and death of all things is but an instant. With my power of condemnation, your suffering shall surely be relieved. Dash, divine word, cleanse." The final second, the black leather book gave off a holy white light that struck the crimson shadow's hand. It let go. Time was up. Gu Qin Shan and the black spiky crab abruptly disappeared. Divine skill, shadow shift. A single wooden bow silently floated in the murky seawater. The overlapping of the two worlds had ended. Roar! The crimson shadow roared helplessly. Chapter 14:03. Gu Qin Shan grabbed the giant black crab and returned to the other side of the void tunnel. "Gongzi, it was so dangerous just now." Shanu's fearful voice resounded in his thought sea. As soon as Gu Qin Shan returned, she went back into his thought sea. Just a bit more and I wouldn't have made it back." Gu Qin Shan sighed in relief and put the crab back on the ground. The overlapping of the two worlds had ended, so the crimson shadow wouldn't be able to catch up for now. Now, I need to find a chance to ask this crab what kind of message it brought. But first, I need to explain the crab's background to everyone. Gu Shan suddenly noticed that something wasn't right. There was no sound around. Everyone was still standing there, anxiously waiting, but none of them seemed to be able to see Gu Shan. Gu Shan asked Crow and the duck plushie, "Hey, what's going on with you two?" Crow wielded his rapier with a calm and cold expression, seemingly ready to help at a moment's notice. But he didn't react at all. He couldn't hear Gu Shan's voice, nor could he see Gu Shan. "What's going on?" Gu Shan turned to look, only to see that the void tunnel was still open. Could it be that the overlapping of the two worlds hasn't ended yet? That's troublesome. The Crimson Shadow will definitely catch up. While Gu Shan was thinking, a voice came from below. "Don't worry. This is only an illusion. The overlapping of the two worlds has ended. That guy won't be able to catch up," the giant black crab replied. Gu Shan looked at the crab, then at everyone else and asked, "Why can't they see me?" "Because I brought you a message. No one can know about this," the giant crab replied, as if it was obvious. Gu Shan went silent. This was essentially creating a barrier out of thin air. Not only was it able to create a fake void tunnel, but it was also able to make me invisible inside the barrier, watching everything that happened outside without anyone noticing me. Crow, the Viscount Envoy, and even the Great Knight Moore were all very powerful people. Even they were completely fooled by this technique. That's a bit terrifying. The me from a parallel world has already mastered such a powerful spell technique. Gu Shan sighed. "What are you talking about? What parallel world you?" the giant crab asked. Gu Shan looked down at the crab and said, "Didn't you bring me a message? Apart from me, in the parallel world, who else would bring me a message?" The giant crab spoke. "Parallel worlds are actually a smokescreen." Gu Shan raised her brows and asked, "Camouflage?" The giant crab waved its pincer in annoyance and said, "Don't ask. I'm just a spell. I don't know much. I might mislead you with my words." Gu Shan's expression did not change. "Shanu, is it a spell?" he silently asked. The Six Paths Great Mountain Sword could cut through all laws, so it was very sensitive to spells. Shanu stayed silent for a bit, then said, "Young master, it is a living creature, but I vaguely feel that its life is unnatural." Gu Shan was once again impressed by this black crab. This black crab unleashed an isolation technique, then turned itself into a living creature created from spell. What kind of person would be able to achieve such a feat? And then there's the message. With that in mind, Gu Shan said, "Now that you're safe, please tell me the message." The black crab crawled in front of Gu Shan and said, "Do you see the spikes on my back? Put your hand on the longest thorn." As a spell that was able to become a living creature and fight against the Crimson Shadow for so long, Gu Shan didn't want to worry about anything anymore. He did as he was told and reached his hand out. As soon as his hand touched the spike, it was poked. The fresh blood fell onto the spike and disappeared at an extremely fast speed. The black crab replied, "HM, that's right. You have the war god authority. It is indeed you now. The spell will be activated as soon as it said so." The black crab scattered into a puddle of black water that quickly spread in every direction. The black water had covered the entire world, turning everything into darkness. Darkness. Silence. Suddenly, there was light. The light flew over from an extremely distant place, erasing all the darkness. Around Gu Shan, countless scenes appeared one after another. They were scenes of every battle he fought, every conversation he had, every day, every expression he made, every decision he made. Time flowed backward, and every day of his past appeared in a dazzling manner. Backwards. Straight backwards. This life. The past life. Every scene was quickly flashing past Gu Shan's eyes. Until that scene, the Freedom Federation, the slums. On the 22nd floor of a high-rise building, the third room from the left, a small figure stood in front of the window, looking down at this world. As Gu Shan saw that figure, his pupils contracted. He quickly walked forward, stood next to the figure, and looked. "It's me, my younger self." His young face was filled with confusion and pain. wiping away his tears, trying his best not to cry. Gu Qingshan's gaze scanned through the room, then locked onto the glowing calendar on the wall. This time, he muttered, "It's this time. My parents met with a car accident, passed away just 7 days ago. On that day, I stood alone in front of the window, looking down at the entire city of metal, thinking about how to survive by myself. Why? Why did I return to this moment?" At this point, the war god UI seemed to have noticed something and lit up. Lines of glowing text appeared, frowny face, specific scenario accepted, identity verification in progress. Verification completed. Beginning to fuse with the scenario, awakening the original spell hidden here. When awakened, a figure suddenly appeared in the small, narrow room. This figure was so faint that it almost didn't exist, so faint that its figure couldn't be seen. The figure looked at Gu Qingshan and began to speak. Frowny face, the crab is an undying causality technique, hidden within the space vortex. Only when it senses that you've matured to a certain point would it awaken and seek you out. If you haven't matured to this point, it would be fine to live out your life as you wish, but since you've matured to this point, been found by the crab, and passed its trial, you will receive this message. Although it's a message, I really want to chat with you for a bit longer, but there's no time. The figure waved his hand. At the bottom of the war god UI, among the row of unopened options, 3 suddenly lit up. One of them looked very familiar to Gu Qingshan. It was the golden saber that had silently grown longer. The other 2 icons were an eye and a square. Gu Qingshan had never seen these 2 icons before. The figure seemed to be able to see the war god UI, pointed at the 3 options in the void of space, and spoke. The meaning of my existence is to help you activate one of these 3 options. But keep in mind, once you choose one of them, the other 2 will permanently disappear. Why is that? Gu Qingshan asked. Because all 3 of them have different causality and logic, so they cannot exist at the same time, the figure replied. The first option, dash, the figure pointed at the eye icon and spoke. This is the eye of truth. If you choose it, you will be able to see what the majority of living beings and things inside the reality gate will experience at a certain point in the future. After saying so, the figure pointed at the square icon and continued. This is dimensional travel. It will allow you to immediately leave your current world and travel to any other world inside the reality gate. Gu Qingshan nodded and replied, "The truth and undying." Indeed, the figure agreed. With the eye of truth, you will be able to see many truths of the future, allowing you to easily solve many problems you face. With dimensional travel, you will be able to escape from any situation. No one will be able to kill you. What do you think of these 2 abilities? Powerful, surpassing the power of deities, Gu Qingshan commented. Indeed, let us now look at the final option. The figure paused for a bit, then pointed at the 3rd option, which was the golden saber icon. This option doesn't have any use, nor can it help you in any way. It's only a compass. Where does it point to? Gu Qingshan asked. An answer, the figure replied. The answer to what? Who are you? Gu Qingshan was shocked. Chapter 1404. Looking at the golden sword icon, Gu Qingshan pondered. During the age of old, to create a closed loop of space-time, the war god UI once left me and returned to the final moments of my past life, bringing my past self back to the day of my high school graduation. Although the war god UI left, it left me a copy of War God Skills, which was this icon. This icon had gone through the trials of the Earth world with me, the battle between the divine race and the desolate monsters. The golden sword on the icon had grown a bit longer. Have you made up your mind? Which one do you want to choose? The figure asked. Gu Qingshan replied. Compared to these choices, I'm more interested in who you are. The figure stood in front of her and muttered. This question is not within the scope of the technique. Gu Qingshan tried asking. Are you me from a certain point in time? No, the figure replied. Then, are you me from a certain parallel world? Gu Qingshan asked again. The figure replied. No, the crab wasn't wrong on one point. Parallel worlds are nothing more than a smokescreen. But what it didn't say was that all things and living beings in reality are scattered across all parallel worlds. This world is indeed the strongest reality outside of the inner plane. Hearing that, Gu Qingshan was shaken. He quickly continued. Or, for example, the fragment of the samsara. After being shattered, it broke into countless pieces and scattered across the starry sea of parallel worlds. The Wraith realm pushed the destruction of the parallel worlds, using fate corrosion to strike the eternal abyss. They most likely originated from a certain parallel world. You reacted very quickly, so you must make your choice now. The figure pointed at the three options in the void of space and said. The scenery around her began to tremble slightly. This spell can't be maintained for too long, and I'm only a temporary existence, so I can't answer too many of your questions. You have to make a decision within 10 minutes, otherwise, once the spell ends, you'll lose this chance, the shadow urged. Gu Qing lightly nodded. There's nothing to hesitate about. Although the first two options sound impressive, when it comes to power, as long as I work hard, I'll be able to use other methods to achieve these two abilities sooner or later. The ability to see the future is actually the most unreliable. Not only would it cause me to be deceived if I use it too much. Gu Qing would always remember how the Earth God died. It didn't see the scene of its own death in the future, so it lost some of its caution and died in the past. This matter was actually the true future of its destiny. Also, Lady Undying San once said that she could see a few different futures from him, but when he made a new decision, those futures became even more numerous. Gu Qing whispered, the future is illusory. Trying to understand the future is actually a paradox. Paradox? The figure asked in confusion. Gu Qing said slowly, the cause that all living beings do now determines their effect in the future. But all living beings are fickle. Many people don't know what they will do when they are really standing at the crossroads of fate. Have you seen something like this before? The figure asked. Gu Qing showed a look of reminiscence. The moment when hundreds of millions of dead people came to the human world to support the battle replayed in his mind. I once had many comrades, all of whom were heinous criminals in hell, but at a certain crucial moment, they made a decision that even I couldn't imagine. I was very grateful to them, but I also understood that the future is ultimately in everyone's hands. When everyone is united, the future will also change, the figure said. So you weren't willing to choose this option. That's right, Gu Qing continued. As for the dimensional travel ability, it can indeed be used to escape at a crucial moment, but after doing it too much, a person would become cowardly. That's why I chose wait a minute. The figure suddenly called out. Gu Qing was surprised. The figure reached his hand out and tapped the void of space. I didn't think that your understanding had already reached this point. Seems like I'll have to give you something more realistic on the War God UI. The two options, Eye of Truth and Dimensional Travel, slowly fuse together to form a new icon. On this icon, there is a long river that flickered with radiance. This is a completely new ability created from the fusion of the two abilities. Return of the Fallen Star, the figure explained. What is this ability? Gu Qing asked. The moment before your death, you will return to a certain point in the past and start all over again, the figure lightly explained. You can only use it 7 times, but if you're careful, you'll be able to survive for a very, very long time, the figure added. Gu Qing went silent for a while. This is a talisman of immortality, and you're giving it to me just like that, he asked in a low voice. To be able to fuse 2 war god options like this into a near-immortal Return of the Fallen Star, you must understand the war god UI very well. The figure didn't deny it. It pointed at the void of space. Their 2 icons stood side by side. A long river of light. This was the Return of the Fallen Star. A golden short sword. This was the compass. The figure slowly spoke. I must remind you, with Return of the Fallen Star, you will have 7 chances to start all over again. You will be able to predict what will happen in the long years ahead. These are all things that have already happened. As long as you don't try to change them, they will not change. This is much safer than peeking into the future. This ability will help you overcome all difficulties, allow you to enjoy countless happy moments, enjoy all the beautiful things, reach the pinnacle of your life, and become a truly great person within the space vortex. Or if you don't want to live like that, you can also become a hermit and focus on living your own life. After saying so, the figure pointed at the golden short sword. Gu Qing's gaze also fell onto the golden short sword. The figure continued, frowny face. The compass is different. If you want to know who you are, you will have to walk an extremely long and arduous path. You will need to do everything in your power to fight in order to have a chance of survival. Every day, as soon as you open your eyes, you will have to put in endless effort and use all of your intelligence to take a single step forward. Furthermore, you will often fall down, sometimes even having to give up some precious things. Your enemies will only grow more and more numerous, becoming increasingly difficult to deal with. You will be covered in wounds, and if you aren't careful, you will lose your life. Perhaps one day, you will truly succeed and make it to the end, but even if that is the case, the only thing you will gain from this is knowing a single thing. That is who you are. The figure lowered its hand and casually spoke. I've explained the pros and cons of the two options. There isn't much time left, so please make your final choice. Gu Qingshan raised her hand and pointed at the golden short sword. Why? The figure asked. I don't know what others think, but I've always felt that there are a lot of shackles in life, like happiness or peace, Gu Qingshan replied. Happiness? Peace. You think they are shackles? The figure repeated. Indeed, living in this world is a very real thing. You can easily feel a lot of pain, a lot of helplessness, especially in this era of apocalypse. People have had enough of suffering and suffering. Many of them yearn for peace and happiness. At this point, Gu Qingshan glanced at his younger self. The lonely figure stood in front of the window, thinking of his deceased parents, his heart filled with confusion about his future. The figure looked at him, waiting for what he was going to say next. Gu Qingshan sighed, then continued. I also enjoy happiness and peace, but pain is a true sword. It will constantly remind me that I can't lead a befuddled life. I can't lie down and enjoy a comfortable life. I can't rely on some special ability to stop moving forward. His voice was a bit stiff. A person can't be trapped in peace and happiness, but rather maintain anger, stand up, run, fight, use strength and faith to protect those precious things. For this, I must become stronger. I can't stop moving forward. Even if I'm covered in blood, even if I have to pay with my life, I must keep moving forward. Only then will I feel that I'm truly alive. The figure went silent for a while. Sometimes, living a stable life isn't a sin, the figure softly said. Of course it isn't a sin. I also agree that there should be a balance between work and rest. In fact, I also like cooking, Gu Qingshan replied, but the most important thing is your heart. You need to know that you are more than this, that there is something you truly want to do, that something is the meaning of your life, and you must fight for it. Gu Qingshan said nothing else. Inside the room, a soft sigh resounded. The figure shook her head, stopped hesitating, and placed her hand on the golden sword icon. There's no turning back. Are you sure you want to choose compass? The figure asked. I'm sure, Gu Qingshan replied. The figure lightly tapped the golden sword icon. A blinding golden glow enveloped the room. A brand new icon appeared on the War God UI. A line of glowing text quickly appeared. Frowny face, new function, compass is being created. Please wait for 10 seconds. 9. Taking advantage of this time, the figure walked next to Gu Qingshan and silently observed him. She suddenly reached her hand out and lightly stroked Gu Qingshan's face. The faint voice that couldn't be understood slowly became real. Child, I had wanted to leave you with a stable life, but now that you've become a true man, I will respect your decision. Gu Qingshan's expression changed as she looked down at the figure. A familiar face that only existed in her memories slowly became clear. The situation at the time was too dangerous. I couldn't take you with me. You were too young. You wouldn't survive. Tears flowed. Her eyes were filled with longing and reluctance. The golden glow continued to grow, enveloping everything around her. Her figure slowly disappeared. The War God UI's voice resounded. Frowny face, compass has been activated. From now on, you may search for the truth of everything. After saying so, the UI returned to silence. Inside the blinding light, Gu Qingshan blankly stood in the narrow room without moving. Behind him, the young him was also staring at the metal city outside the window, also silent. After a long while, a faint voice could be heard. Frowny face, mother. Chapter 1405. An autumn water, clear blue sword descended, lightly hovering next to Gu Qing Shan, using the hilt of the sword to poke his shoulder, as if to comfort him. Gongzi, that was only a spell just now. I saw that you didn't give me a signal, so I didn't want to do anything Shanu said. I know. Gu Qing Shan didn't look up. Shanu hesitated a bit, then continued. This spell was left behind many years ago. It's about to fade away. I know, Gu Qing Shan replied in a low voice. Luo Bingli's voice suddenly came. Your parents might still be alive. That's something to be happy about. The Earth Sword's woo-woo also came. That's right, old Gu, if you're really unhappy, I'll send 2 chicks to drink with you tonight. The Chaoyin Sword also woo-woo in response. The Heaven Sword and 6 Paths, Great Mountain Sword, both heavily slapped the Earth Sword, causing it to give off a clear metallic clanging noise. The Chaoyin Sword hurriedly hid into the void of space. Gu Qing Shan shook his head, walked to the window, and stood next to his younger self, looking at the gloomy sky outside. The 4 swords all went silent and silently followed behind him. Shanu's voice softened and softly told him, Gongzi, cheer up. The spell is about to completely fade away. We're about to return to the world of living beings. Don't worry, I'm fine. Just like Luo Bingley said, I'm a bit worried about them. I don't know if they're still alive. Gu Qing Shan sighed, then continued. It would be great if they were still alive. His gaze fell on his younger self, and he muttered to himself, You're too young. They purposely made a return of the fallen star for me, probably because they wanted me to live a peaceful life, but they were also afraid that I'd be a restless person, so searching for them would most likely be a dangerous matter in the outside world. But they still missed me, so they made me a compass and let me choose for myself. When you were young, didn't you notice anything different about your parents? Luo Bingley carefully asked. Gu Qing Shan stayed silent for a bit, then replied, Now that I think about it, there really are a lot of suspicious points. When I was young, my parents never cleaned the house, but the house was always clean. My family ran a restaurant in the slums, but it didn't make much money. My dad never took any money from the elderly, but the restaurant never went bankrupt. Our neighborhood was surprisingly safe. Any tattooed gangster would die the next day as soon as they caused trouble. It wasn't until a few months after I became an orphan that there was a murder case. My dad doesn't like those aristocrats of the Nine Lords. He always looks at them like they're a pile of sh*t. So whenever he leaves the slums to do business, it's always easy for him to get into trouble. At the time, my mom worriedly asked him why he always likes to play with sh*t outside. So from then on, my dad rarely goes out. My father would do something strange every day. Sometimes he would blow into the air, and sometimes he would suddenly clap his hands. I asked him curiously, and he always said that learning Qigong for the elderly is good for the body. Shanu chimed in. Did he teach you anything? When I was in kindergarten, I told him that I wanted to be a scientist when I grew up. He was very happy and personally helped me with my homework every day, but when I was in elementary school, the homework was too hard. So he said that he was just a person with nothing to do and that he had never learned any scientific knowledge before. So I needed to slowly explore it myself. Gu Qing Shan smiled and continued. My mom, she was an extremely lazy person. She would usually just sit there, blanking out for a few hours at a time. But I still remember one time when she was done blanking out, she proudly hugged me and told me that when you grow up, you'll meet a lot of girls who like you. Every single one of them is a good girl, and that you have to help our Gu family grow up. I didn't know what growing up meant at the time, but now I do. It's not too late, Luo Bingley encouraged her. You still don't understand the Earth Sword side. The 2 female swords slapped the Earth Sword from behind Gu Qing Shan at the same time. Gu Qing Shan didn't say anything else and silently looked at the War God UI. On the UI, the golden saber icon silently sat at the very end of the list of icons. Compass. Although the spells around her would soon disappear, and she would soon return to the Saint Spirit world to face the questions of the others, Gu Qing Shan still couldn't help but focus her mind and lightly tapped on this icon. Lines of golden light appeared from the icon of the compass and appeared in the void of space. Frowny face, attention. Here's a message for you. All of a sudden, a lot of voices resounded. Screams, screams, loud clashing of spells, clashing of weapons, loud explosions of spells, and spells continued for 7 to 8 seconds. Finally, All the voices faded away. It was now that a male voice called out, "I'm done. Hurry up and record a message for our son." A female voice hurriedly called out, "Son, listen carefully. In the Saint Spirit World's Roland Empire, at the center of the southern wall of the Royal Secret Vault's 5th floor, there is a hidden compartment where we left something for you. If you like it, you can accept it. If you don't like it, you can also accept it. In short, you won't lose anything from this. This Saint Spirit World isn't bad at all. Do your best." At the end, her voice even sounded a bit prideful. A new line of glowing text quickly appeared on the War God UI. Compass hint. Find that thing, and you will receive a new clue. Gu Shan immediately asked, "Is the new clue related to the item I'm looking for?" Perhaps not. But regardless, only by completing this task will the compass give you a new direction, the War God UI replied. Gu Shan sighed. "Gongzi, what's the matter?" Shanu asked caringly. "The Saint Spirit World is a very powerful world, but my parents left something in the royal family of the Empire, telling me to find a way to get it," Gu Shan replied. "What's wrong with that? Just go get it," Luo Bingley said indifferently. The Earth Sword replied, "How is it wrong? Without status, without strength, without status, you wouldn't be able to enter that place. Then become stronger," Luo Bingley replied. "That's most likely what my parents want. They're too cunning to test me like this, and I actually have a bad feeling about the item they left me." Gu Shan commented, "You don't think it's some sort of unique treasure?" The Earth Sword asked. "It shouldn't be. The War God UI is a treasure they left me. As for the item in the royal family of the Empire, I can't say for sure," Gu Shan replied. Everything faded away. Gu Shan had returned to the Saint Spirit World, Ramon village at the border of the duchy. "How was it? Are you all right?" Crow stood on one side and asked, "What was inside that void hole?" Moore asked. Gu Shan turned to the wall. The void hole had disappeared. The entire wall had returned to normal. It was like a dream. He went through such a test, and then he met his mother and learned about them. Now that I think about it, the divinities of this world only predicted the arrival of the plague, but they were also surprised by the appearance of that world fragment. That crab art was actually activated when the worlds overlapped. This was unimaginable. It was another world inside, the world of the ocean. I saw the Crimson Shadow fighting against other monsters, so I hurriedly retreated, Gu Shan replied. Recalling how powerful the Crimson Shadow was, everyone couldn't help but fall silent. Not good. I have to return to Count Heath right away and report this to him. Saying so, Moore turned to Gu Shan. Road, what are you going to do next? I'm going to the Viscount's manor and prepare to be conferred the title of Baron, Gu Shan replied. All right, I'll come find you later, Moore patted her shoulder. Then, I'll see you later, Gu Shan replied. Moore nodded to the others, turned around, entered the void of space, and returned with the army. The village returned to silence. From the looks of it, this looks like a random collision between worlds. I really hope that's the end of it. Otherwise, it would be troublesome, the Viscount envoy sighed. Gu Shan followed up. This is my village. Of course, I hope that's the case, but it definitely won't be the case. Not too long from now, the plague apocalypse would descend upon this world like a storm. This was only the beginning. Following this, there would be extinct monsters, as well as the schemes of the wraiths, all of which would gradually appear in this world. Come to think of it, when the plague apocalypse first descended, the law of this world requested me to use the corpses of the plague monsters to send a warning to the world. I still haven't finished that. Sir Envoy, I suggest that we depart immediately and report to the Viscount about what happened here, Gu Shan said. You're right. The Viscount Envoy waved his short staff and lightly tapped the void of space. A gate appeared. Let us go. Chapter 1406. Langlois County. Viscount Warren's Manor. As soon as Gu Shan arrived, she was immediately invited into the study. Viscount Warren was a middle-aged man with a kind expression. If it weren't for the long robe he was wearing that gave off thin, twisting shadows, he would be no different from an unassuming passerby. As soon as he saw Gu Shan, The Viscount immediately came forward and gave her a warm hug. Time sure flies. In just a blink of an eye, our Langlois County will soon have another handsome baron, Viscount Warren commented. Thank you. I will do my best, Gu Qingshan replied. All right, let's take a look at the corpses first. We'll talk as we go, Viscount Warren said. Following his orders, the corpses of the two wraiths were brought forward. Their faces were still humanoid, but their bloated bodies, limbs, long claws, as well as the carapace on their backs clearly indicated that they had been modified by something. Seal the study. Don't let anyone in or out, Viscount Warren ordered. Understood. Everyone left, leaving only the Viscount and Gu Qingshan. Road, what do you think happened to these two Wraith Realm humans? Viscount Warren asked. Sir Viscount, I'm guessing that they were hit by something, or rather, infected, Gu Qingshan said. Is that so? If you don't mind, I'd like to collect their souls and observe the situation, Viscount Warren said. Of course I don't mind. Please, Gu Qingshan replied. Viscount Warren walked in front of the two corpses, opened his palm, and muttered, Dead souls, come forth. Several translucent gray shadows flew out from his palm and landed on the two corpses. The two corpses remained still. Their souls are no longer here. Seems like they've returned to the Wraith Realm. However, saying so, Viscount Warren reached out a finger and hooked it. As if a string was being pulled, a faint glow slowly appeared between the two corpses. Come, take a look at what they ran into in your territory. Viscount Warren quickly chanted an incantation. The faint glow scattered to reveal a scene. Two wraiths were crouching in the wilderness, looking down at the corpse of the giant wolf in front of them. This is the monster that Rode killed, an evil spirit said. Strange, we have records of the wild beasts and rare creatures of the Saint Spirit world, even legendary monsters and demigod life forms, but we've never seen this type of wolf before. Could it be a new breed? Another wraith asked. The two of them did not notice that the void behind them silently opened up, and a rotten finger reached out and pressed on the back of their heads. The rotten finger retracted, and the void immediately closed up without a sound. After a moment of silence, the two evil spirits suddenly fell to the ground, twitching nonstop, and their bodies began to change drastically. Ah! They hissed involuntarily and quickly turned into monsters. Viscount Warren narrowed his eyes. Gu Qingshan knew what happened next. The monster rushed into the small town of Ramon, eating everyone in sight. Gu Qingshan brought Crow and the Viscount envoy to kill the two monsters on the spot. After reading it, Viscount Warren pondered. Seems like someone really was behind this. Gu Qingshan added fuel to the fire. Sir, I'm guessing that finger doesn't belong to our world, ah? What proof do you have? Viscount Warren asked. Gu Qingshan replied. I remember that the Wraith Realm has a lot of life-saving techniques, and they also know our Saint Spirit world very well. So they must have a corresponding defensive measure, unless it's something that they've never seen before, which would be able to silently mutate them, Viscount Warren replied. His expression became cautious as he walked up to the wall, picked up a small wooden mallet, and knocked on the clock on the wall. Esteemed military minister, hand of the Empire's cavalry, His Excellency Count Sith, I wish to see you. Immediately, Viscount Warren respectfully said. A few moments later, Come, I was just about to look for you. A heavy voice resounded from the clock. Viscount Warren pointed his finger at the ground. The two monster corpses instantly disappeared. I'm going to meet the Count first and inform him of this matter. Rode, you should go and have some fun at the ball, Viscount Warren said. Yes, Sir Gu Qingshan replied. This should be a success. Knight Moore was a subordinate of Count Sith's Second Knight Regiment, so he would definitely report this matter to his superiors. If Viscount Warren were to report this matter, he would definitely receive a lot of attention. As an unappointed baron, this was the most Gu Qingshan could do. Fortunately, the people of this world were all very powerful, so their judgment wouldn't be lacking, so they should be able to tell that this was a sign of the apocalypse. At that time, I would have accomplished the task that the world's spirit requested of me. Viscount Warren's figure disappeared into the void of space, but quickly returned. He took out a black bow from the void of space, then told Gu Qingshan, Rode, I heard that you lost your bow, Come and try this one, sir. This is too expensive. I can't accept it, Gu Qingshan declined. Viscount Warren casually replied, I've seen your battle. You wouldn't be able to accept it if it's just archery alone, but you have the power of lightning, capable of separating the monster's soul from its body. At the same time, you also have the identity of a condemner, which will allow you to further improve your strength. Viscount Warren tossed a black bow to Gu Qingshan and continued. As the agents of the gods in the mortal world, each of our strength is measured by our title, Roland said. Road, you will definitely become a qualified baron. I am certain of this. After saying so, Viscount Warren disappeared. Gu Qingshan held the black bow in his hand and silently stood still. Strength. Was it based on the title of nobility? Viscount Warren worshipped the god of slumber, a very powerful god. In front of me, Viscount Warren was able to easily search the soul. Even if he couldn't find the soul, he could still use the corpse to investigate the situation at the time. This is already so powerful that it wouldn't be an exaggeration to call it a divine skill. I wonder how powerful Count Sith is? At this point, Gu Qingshan looked down at the black bow in her hand. The bow felt cold to the touch, a bit like metal, and carried the scent of blood. A line of glowing text quickly appeared on the War God UI, frowny face soul artifact. Bow of blooming death. This bow has the ability. Flying shadow. Constant ability. Any arrow you fire will have its flight time reduced by 1 second. Gu Qingshan glanced over and couldn't help but exclaim, what a good bow. From the surface, this seems like an ability that increases the speed of fire, but it isn't. This is a constant time ability that will take effect at any time. When an enemy faces a flying arrow, they would easily misjudge it and lose the chance to evade. A divine artifact for sneak attacks. I didn't think Viscount Warren would be so generous as to give me such a bow. Gu Qingshan left the study. Crow was waiting on the hallway outside with a duck plushie in his arms. He excitedly pinched a flame into a rose, then controlled the rose to manifest into a thin flame sword. Did you notice? Crow asked. What is it? Gu Qingshan asked. Not only is this world able to endure our full-powered combat, it can also help us better evolve, because the laws of origin of this world are truly too powerful, Crow excitedly said. Gu Qingshan was a bit surprised. If that's the case, he closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Spirit energy immediately flowed into him. The entire world was basically a super powerful spirit funnel formation. At this point, a butler came and lightly bowed to Gu Qingshan and Crow. Gentlemen, the ball has begun. Please follow me, the butler said. Gu Qingshan and Crow exchanged glances. After a brief moment of excitement, Crow lowered her head and muttered in a low voice, A ball. I don't want to accept those men's invitations. The butler looked at her, then at Gu Qingshan, then silently gave Gu Qingshan a thumbs up. Gu Qingshan didn't know what kind of expression to respond to that. The duck plushie's voice suddenly resounded in Gu Qingshan and Crow's minds. Be content. No one would ever invite a duck to dance. Crow felt a bit of sympathy for him. Gu Qingshan also felt a bit reluctant. He held the duck plushie in his hand and whispered, Should I find a shape-shifting technique in this world to turn you back in a human form? Before the duck plushie could say anything, a female voice suddenly resounded. Ah, this plushie is so cute. Can I hold it for a bit? Gu Qingshan looked up, only to see a young aristocratic girl standing next to him, staring at the duck plushie in his hand. I'm sorry. As Gu Qingshan was about to refuse, the duck plushie's resolute voice resounded in her mind. Say yes. Chapter 1407. Soul points contributed to the laws of the world. Plus 300, plus 300, plus 300. As Gu Qingshan stared at the lines of text that kept popping up on the War God UI, he was in the mood to participate in some sort of banquet. I'm going to run out of money. I need to think of a way to earn more soul points. But the Viscount still hasn't returned, and the conferring ceremony hasn't begun, so I can't leave. Gu Qingshan sighed helplessly, then found a seat in a corner and sat down. I wonder how things are progressing. If I was someone with actual authority like Viscount Warren, I might even be able to participate in the aftermath. While he was thinking, Crow walked over and sat down on the chair next to him. The first dance is about to begin. Look at this, Kay. There are so many beautiful young ladies here, as well as alluring noble women. How unfortunate that I, Crow sighed, leaned back on the chair, and crossed his legs without a care for his image. No need to pay attention to these people or the dance. We need to think of a way to resolve this world apocalypse. That way, all three of us will be able to turn back, Gu Qing whispered. Crow glanced at him, then said, I think that duck plushie doesn't want to turn back. What do you mean? Gu Qing asked. Crow narrowed his eyes. Gu Qing followed Crow's gaze and looked towards the beautiful young ladies. The duck plushie was being swapped back and forth, being touched by one, then hugged by another. Gu Qing hesitated, then sent her voice to the duck plushie. Oh, Maki, let me save you? The duck plushie's excited voice abruptly came. No, no, no. This is the highlight of my life. Please give me a bit of time to remember this moment while Gu Qing. Crow looked at Gu Qing's expression and mocked. Are you wondering why those young ladies will like a plushie that's only worth 1 copper coin? That's a bit strange, Gu Qing replied. Because it's yours, Crow replied. Gu Qing was startled. Crow evaluated him, then commented, a handsome 15-year-old young man, confirmed to be a condemner that only appears once every few hundred years, daring enough to personally fight against the monster, receiving a private audience from the Viscount as soon as he arrived. Soon enough, you will be conferred the title of Baron. I'm sure many of the girls here are thinking of how to approach you. As soon as he finished speaking, the music started to play. The first dance is about to begin. Look at those girls. They're all pumped up as if they're about to step into the battlefield. Halfway through his sentence, Crow suddenly stopped. Hello, Road. Will you dance with me for the first dance? A noble lady approached Gu Qing and asked charmingly. Gu Qing quickly stood up and said apologetically, I'm sorry, I'd like to sit for a while. The girl giggled and said, You want to dance with the Viscount's daughter for the first dance, right? It's fine. I'll just have to bear with it and dance with you for the second dance. Saying so, without waiting for Gu Qing to refuse again, she turned around and left. Gu Qing's hand was raised halfway, but she couldn't pull her back, nor could she call for her to come back. That would draw everyone's attention. Am I supposed to refuse a girl's invitation to dance with me in front of everyone? Wouldn't that just be embarrassing her? Gu Qing dejectedly lowered her hand. Crow clicked his tongue and praised, Look, that's how girls do things, retreating in order to advance. Not only does it show off their elegance and courtesy, it also makes it impossible for you to refuse to dance with her for the second dance. Gu Qing was annoyed. I didn't come here to dance, before he could finish his words. Another noble lady walked over leisurely. I saw what happened just now, Road. I'll take the third dance. The girl silently winked at Gu Qing, then lowered her voice and said, Road, I'm a high-rank follower of the goddess of pleasure. She raised her slender finger and circled around the room, gesturing that no girl could compare to her. Then she left. Crow watched this with a troubled expression, muttering to himself, Pleasure. I really want to experience it. Unfortunately, I've turned into a girl suddenly. A butler walked up to Gu Qing and quickly told her, Young Master Road, Sir Viscount has returned. After the first dance is over, he will confer a title to you in front of everyone. Very well. Thank you, Gu Qing replied. The butler nodded, then turned around and left. Gu Qing felt relieved. It seems Count Heat's matter has been resolved. With the foresight and strength of these VIPs, they should be able to warn everyone about the apocalypse. At this point, the first dance was about to begin. Gu Qing looked around, only to see that the Viscount's 2 daughters were looking at her. There was a certain something in their eyes. In any case, it was something that made Gu Qing anxious. Crow, what? Come dance, wah. Before she could finish, Gu Qing had already pulled her up and brought her onto the dance floor. The music became louder. Everyone began to dance. Are you afraid of women? While dancing, Crow curiously sent her voice. Gu Qing replied, That's not it. We don't have time for these unnecessary things. Crow appeared disapproving. The joy of life is made up of unnecessary things. Gu Qing glanced at the war god UI. Her soul points value was still dropping by 300 every second. Right now, we need to focus on solving this world's problems, Gu Qing said. I'm reminding you. You're squeezing my chest, Crow said with a stern expression. Gu Qing looked down, then silently took a few steps back. Suddenly, a commotion could be heard from outside. A large group of people wearing cultivator robes and yiksha masks walked in. They exchanged a few words with the butler, then didn't participate in the banquet or dance, simply found a corner and silently stood there. Next to Gu Qing and Crow, an aristocratic young lady asked in a low voice, "Why are these guys here?" Her dance partner was a gentleman, who explained, "These people are quite conscientious in their work. Sir Viscount would occasionally allow them to participate as a form of reward. Do you understand?" The aristocratic young lady teased. "I understand. Just like my hunting dogs, when I'm in a mood, I'll also feed them some food." That's right, Gu Qing and Crow exchanged glances. "Look, the people of this world have already gotten used to the existence of wraiths." Crow lowered his voice. Gu Qing looked around. The other aristocratic gentlemen and young ladies also casually glanced at these wraiths, then ignored them. The dance wasn't affected at all, still filled with a cheerful atmosphere. Gu Qing, on the other hand, became cautious. He could sense that the wraiths' gazes were constantly, inadvertently turning towards him. The song came to an end. As soon as Gu Qing left the dance floor, a wraith came up and clasped his fist. "Esteemed young Master Road, we of the Wraith Realm have a gift for you. Please follow me." Gu Qing stood still and asked, "Would you offer a gift to every nobleman who has been conferred a title?" Behind him, another aristocrat chimed in. "That's right, Road. For the past several thousand years, they have always respected our combatants. Go, accept the worship and offerings of these foreigners." Gu Qing stayed silent for a bit, then smiled. "Then I'll have to respectfully accept at this point a lot of things happen one after another." New 81 Chinese website mobile. // 2 lines of glowing text appeared on the war god UI. Frowny face, you've adeptly grasped the sacrificial sword dance and performed a normal dance. Please note, when the next dance begins, your dancing skills will be improved. At the same time, at the end of the banquet hall, the Sir Viscount abruptly appeared. His appearance caused everyone to cheer. "He's back. I wonder how he's doing," Crow muttered. "There shouldn't be any issues. A monster of that caliber would definitely draw the attention of combatants," Gu Qing replied. "Road, come here." The Sir Viscount smiled and called out. He was wielding an intricate ceremonial sword in his hand. "I ask everyone here to bear witness. I shall confer Road the title of Baron," the Sir Viscount loudly declared. Everyone began to clap. Gu Qing told the wraith, "Seems like you'll have to wait a bit for me." Of course, the wraith stepped to the side. Gu Qing walked up to the Viscount. All of a sudden, he felt a burning sensation on his wrist. First published on New 81 Chinese website. The proof of the world had been awakened. Whispers resounded in his ears. Frowny face, you've displayed the origin of the plague apocalypse to the upper echelons of this world, successfully rousing their vigilance. Living beings of this world will prepare for the apocalypse ahead of time. Even so, the important events that happen in history will continue to happen as time approaches. That will be the beginning of the Wraith's destruction of this world. This event has concluded. Your mission has been perfectly completed. Within Gu Qing inner sight, the small blue sword on his wrist burned and turned into a brand new icon. It was a skull. You've obtained our recognition. We shall now explain to you the origin of the world's destruction. The Wraith's betrayal began with a minor incident. That incident happened on this very day in history, just 1 hour from now. Historians call that incident the death of the young Baron. Chapter 1408. As Gu Qing walked among the crowd, everything around him slowly disappeared. The ballroom and banquet hall were both gone. A small sword that gave off a blue flame appeared in front of his eyes. Following that, the boundless sea of stars circled around him, whispering into his ears. Frowny face, the combatants have begun to notice the arrival of the plague apocalypse. Your actions are worthy of the deities opening a temporal path for you. Let us bring you to take a look. In the history of the Saint Spirit world, this is how the young Baron died. That was the beginning of the world's destruction by the wraiths. The small blue sword scattered into a mass of light that enveloped Guqingshan. Langlois Prefecture. Viscount Warren's manor. A handsome young man was dancing with the Viscount's daughter. Guqingshan hovered in the air, staring at him. Is this the real road from history? Guqingshan asked. Countless voices spoke at once. Indeed, he became the condemner, then met the wraiths in the Viscount's manor. Guqingshan silently nodded. So it was the world spirit's intention for me to turn into this young man. Below, as the dance ended, the wraiths approached the young man, offering him a present. Very well, seeing how sincere you are, I'll accept your present, the young man replied. The scene quickly changed. The Viscount appeared and conferred the young man the title of Baron. The banquet became even more lively. The young man immersed himself in it, getting to know many young ladies. At night, the young man returned to his room and opened the present the wraiths offered. It was a few thin pieces of jade. The young man didn't care much at first, but the more he looked, the more serious he became, muttering to himself, "What profound archery! Perfect for me!" But where did those wraiths get such powerful archery from? The young man appeared cautious, took out a black leather book, and flipped it open. The Condemnation Codex. The jade pieces that recorded archery were placed on top of the black leather book. May all irredeemable sins be revealed, the young man chanted an incantation. Guqingshan noticed that the Real Road obtained a completely different condemnation card from her. Come to think of it, how could such a young man obtain a weapon like the Crimson Demon Divine Spear right off the bat? Guqingshan continued reading. Suddenly, a painful howl came from the black book, and a few jade pieces all shattered. The youth's expression changed. He picked up the black book and rushed out of the room. Help me inform Lord Viscount. I want to see him immediately. The youth shouted as he ran. A man who looked like a butler came up and whispered, Baron, please calm down. What happened? Why are you in such a hurry to see the Viscount? The young man quickly said, Those wraiths were deceiving me. The bow technique they gave me was a sinister trap. Oh? What kind of trap is it? The butler asked. As long as I practice their archery, they will be able to take over my body, the young man shouted. Guqingshan raised an eyebrow. This was such a familiar scene. Could it be that all of this, as well as everything that happened in the Tomb of Myriad Beasts, was the wraiths doing behind the scenes? The butler looked confused and murmured, Is that so? Strange, this technique has never been detected before. Another voice resounded. There are too few condemners. They don't believe in deities, and the Condemnation Codex is the most unique and powerful thing in existence. So there might be a card that could see through our technique from the darkness. A man wearing a Yiksha mask appeared. He was holding the young man's head in his hand. At some unknown point, the young man had already died. His headless body fell to the ground. Bright red blood continuously spread across the floor. A second later, an endless gust of wind blew past Guqingshan, pushing him back into the past. Under the illumination of the starlight, everything around him faded away. His vision blurred. Guqingshan found himself back at the ballroom. Among the lively crowd, Viscount Warren was standing at the other end of the ballroom, raising his ceremonial sword and loudly declared, Road, this is your moment. Guqingshan regained his composure and quickly walked towards the Viscount. So, that's what happened. Guqingshan walked up to the Viscount and knelt down on one knee. The Viscount lightly pressed the back of the ceremonial sword against his shoulder, touched it 3 times, then began to chant the conferring incantation. This conferring is to encourage the one who has contributed greatly to the world of Saint Spirit. Mr. Rode, the pioneer of his territory, I did not confer the title of Baron upon him in hopes that he would display his rank, but rather that he would remember the power of faith. Stand up. Rode. Guqingshan stood up. Faint divine runes appeared on his body. This was a conferring incantation that was recognized by both the deities and the world itself, which could only be carried out after the executors of the mortal world discussed and decided. Viscount Warren bestowed a baron armor to Gu Shan. This was the symbol of a baron, representing his status and authority. Gu Shan received the armor and bowed to Viscount Warren. The Viscount then gave a few words of encouragement. Amidst everyone's cheers and applause, the conferring ceremony was finally completed. Under everyone's watchful eyes, the wraiths once again appeared next to Gu Shan. "Baron, Sir Baron," the leader of the wraiths called out. "Go ahead," Gu Shan smiled faintly. "We sincerely offer you a treasure of our world, hoping that it will be able to accompany you and provide you with great support." The wraiths bowed and presented a treasure box. Everyone's gaze fell onto the treasure box with an expression of absolute certainty. This had been the case for several thousand years. People were used to it. Gu Shan looked at the treasure box, then at the wraiths in front of her. "What's inside?" Gu Shan asked. The wraiths raised the treasure box without saying a word. They weren't sure if this young man really wanted to open the treasure box in front of everyone, or if he was just pretending to ask. A second later, Gu Shan directly opened the treasure box. A few thin pieces of jade silently sat inside the treasure box, giving off a clear, crystalline glow. Seems like it's a scripture or something similar. The Wraith realm had fought for us everywhere and obtained quite a few good things, although the majority of them would have to be handed over. "The things we gave to your excellencies should be the best," everyone whispered to each other. Seeing that he had actually opened the treasure box in front of everyone, the Wraith leader said, "Sir Baron, these are quite a few decent archery techniques." Even the divinities had praised these archery techniques to be powerful, saying that they should be passed down in the saint spirit world. Everyone's discussions became louder. Quite a few of them appeared envious. Gu Shan smiled and slowly said, "You're very kind, but I'm currently a condemner, so I've decided to no longer practice archery techniques and focus solely on studying the Condemnation Codex. So I won't accept these things." The wraiths were a bit surprised. It wasn't that he didn't want to accept things, but that these things were already useless to him. This was only natural. The wraith leader didn't know what to say, nor did he have any way to convince Gu Shan to accept the jade pieces. He held the treasure box and shook his head. "It seems we didn't prepare well enough." All of a sudden, Viscount Warren spoke up. "Road, I advise you to accept these jade pieces and take a look at them when you have the time." Gu Shan's heart slowly sank, but he smiled and said, "Sir," Viscount Warren cut him off and sincerely said, "Your father's forte was the archery. As his son, even if it's for the sake of remembering the glory he once achieved, you should still continue to study the archery." Gu Shan nodded. "You're right, sir." With that, he wiped his hand and put away the jade. "Slips." Viscount Warren nodded, then silently sent his voice. "Road, in all honesty, I'm prepared to recommend you to St. Torrance City to study, as well as serve under Count Sith. Would you be willing?" St. Torrance City was the duchy's royal capital, and Count Sith was the military minister with great authority, which low-level aristocrat wouldn't want to form a relationship with him. Gu Shan appeared excited and sent his voice. "Thank you, Sir Viscount. Of course I'm willing." Viscount Warren patted his shoulder, then sent his voice again. "Count Sith is in need of an excellent archer, so I've decided to recommend you. But after you go, if you show your poor archery skills in front of the Count, you won't end up well. Even I won't have any face left. Do you understand?" Gu Shan replied, "Don't worry, sir. I will earnestly learn the archery techniques that the wraiths offered me. I won't disappoint you." It was now that Viscount Warren appeared satisfied. Chapter 1409. Night. Gu Shan was standing on top of a hill outside the manor, taking out a black bough. On the grass next to him were a few pieces of jade. "They've already prepared them for me." Gu Shan muttered, drew an arrow, and nocked it. His hand loosened. The arrow turned into a blurred image, disappeared into the darkness, and disappeared without a trace. Gu Shan silently stood there without moving for a long while. "Gongzi, haven't you already dealt with something like this?" Shanu asked worriedly. "Yeah, if worst comes to worst, I'll just lure them over and stab them to death," Luo Bingley replied. Gu Shan was still contemplating. The Earth Sword spoke up. You don't understand. As long as Gu Qing has experienced this before, he wouldn't be willing to go through it again, why not? Shanu asked. Stabbing yourself is a very painful thing to do, the earth god spoke in a low voice. Key. The sound of a heavy blow rang out. The earth sword was slammed into the ground by the heaven sword, then struck by the six paths great mountain sword. After a while, the Chao Yin sword couldn't help but silently poke Gu Qing with its hilt. It's fine, don't fight anymore, Gu Qing spoke up. It was only then that Luo Bingli and Shanna stopped. Gu Qing slowly spoke. I was just thinking, if I have to stab myself every time something like this happens, that would be quite a failure. We don't know how many people in this world have been replaced with wraiths. And if the other side has the advantage of numbers, I'll be discovered as soon as I kill the one who's been replaced. And my end would still be worrisome. Hearing that, the four swords all fell silent. That's right, this is a very big problem. Gu Qing held the pieces of jade in his hand and weighed them in his hand. Not a single archery technique in here is clean, he chuckled. On the heaven sword, Luo Bingli's voice came. Gu Qing, what do you plan to do? I'm still thinking. Gu Qing picked and chose a piece of jade and held it in her hand. Following his action, lines of glowing text appeared on the war god UI. Archery, blowing snow. Godly skill, inherited skill. Activation condition. You must sense the enemy's blood aura before you can activate this archery technique. Drifting snow. Your arrows have a range of 100,000 kilometers, and for every 10,000 kilometers the arrow travels, it will gain an additional attack ability, up to a maximum of 10 abilities. Ability 1, Shield Break. Damage to defensive equipment increases by 3 times. Ability 2, Torrential Rain. When it hits an enemy, it will immediately create 5 similar attacks. Ability 3, Random Movement. Randomly draws one of the 5 elements and attaches it to the arrow. Ability 4, Lethal. Your arrows are likely to hit the enemy's vital points. Ability 5, Featherblade. The longer the flight distance, the more powerful the attack, up to a maximum of 3 times. Ability 6, Blood Flow, unable to stop bleeding. Ability 7, Explosion. If the arrow is blocked, it will immediately explode. All abilities attached to it will be triggered. Ability 8, Blinding. Unable to be detected by sight, the enemy will only be able to detect this arrow through their senses. Ability 9, Poisonous Growth. Countless poisonous insects will grow inside the target's body and devour their flesh and blood. Ability 10, Snowfall. The arrow will take the same amount of time to travel 100,000 kilometers as it would take to travel 100 meters. The chances of hitting the target are also the same. To practice this inherited divine skill, it costs 1 million soul points. This was the most valuable of all the pieces of jade. Reading through the description, Gu Qing sighed. What a generous investment to take out such a divine skill. Is it because the Condemner is so rare that he's so desperate to take over my body? This blowing snow that carries 10 abilities, combined with the Black Bow's own Zoom Shadow, its destructive power is top-notch. The only downside is that the conditions to activate this divine skill are too strict. While Gu Qing was thinking, a line of glowing text appeared on the war god, UI, frowny face special attention. This divine skill is an inherited archery technique. In consideration of the previous incident with Ethereal, the UI can now convert blowing snow into knowledge. Knowledge is absolutely safe and clean. Would you like to convert it? No, there is no need to convert it, Gu Qing replied. He directly spent 1 million soul points to learn this archery divine skill. A warm flow flowed from the jade piece into his arm and gathered in his thought sea, allowing Gu Qing to instantly grasp this inherited divine skill. The swords all sensed the change in his state. Gongzi, should I and the Earth Sword act again? Shanu asked. No, there's no rush, Gu Qing muttered. Someone's coming. All the swords instantly went into his thought sea and hid themselves. 1 breath, 2 breaths. A figure appeared in the darkness of the night. Viscount Warren, our young baron. Why are you alone in such a secluded place? Did one of the aristocratic young ladies hurt your heart? He teased, but his gaze was a bit cold. That's not it, Gu Qing curtly replied, drew an arrow from his back, and nocked it. A unique power fluctuation came from the black bow. Viscount Warren's gaze became focused and asked, "You've already started learning that archery technique?" With a resounding crack, the arrow disappeared without a trace as soon as it left the bowstring. "I'm currently practicing it." "What a shocking technique. I didn't think the Wraiths would have such a thing," Gu Qing praised. The cold air around Viscount Warren's body was blown away by the wind. "This is blowing snow. I know this archery technique." The Wraiths had offered this divine skill to quite a few aristocrats, but no one managed to comprehend it. "You're the first," while saying so, he observed Gu Qing. "So that's why." This young man left in the middle of the night in order to find a place to practice his secret skill. From the power fluctuation coming from the young man's body, as well as the arrow that flew away, it was the truth. He was very perceptive and had already begun to comprehend it. Viscount Warren's expression calmed down and handed a document to Gu Qing. "Being able to learn such a powerful archery technique, I have high hopes for you. This is the document to travel to St. Torrance. Report directly to Count Sith." Gu Qing received the document with a hesitant expression. "What is it?" Viscount Warren asked. "Sir, I have a favor to ask," Gu Qing said. "Speak," the Viscount said. "Earlier, 2 Wraiths were infected by that unknown power and turned into monsters, eating people in my town." Gu Qing dragged out his voice and looked at the Viscount. "That's right." The Viscount gestured for him to continue. Gu Qing then continued. "Can you give me one of the monster corpses? I'll hang it on the town's gate when I return, letting everyone know that the monsters have been completely killed and that there's nothing to be afraid of." Viscount Warren went silent. Those 2 unlucky fellows, even their souls have been completely corrupted. Not even a resurrection technique could save them. Although their corpses were already crippled, they were still my comrades. However, this condemner would soon become his comrade. There's no harm in agreeing to his request right now, just in case something else happens. I can give it to you for a few days, but when you return to St. Torrance, bring the corpses with you and hand them over to Count Sith. Understood? Viscount Warren said. "Yes, no problem," Gu Qing happily replied. Viscount Warren tapped the void of space with his hand. A terrifying monster corpse appeared on the ground. Gu Qing put the corpse away and bowed to the Viscount. "Sir, I'll return to the town first, practice my archery technique for a few days, then head to St. Torrance," Viscount Warren replied. "Very well. When you're at St. Torrance, come and see me again." "As you wish." Gu Qing's figure leapt forward and disappeared into the darkness. Viscount Warren remained silent for a while, muttering to himself, "A condemner, how rare," at another location. Gu Qing and Crow returned to Ramon Village. "We're heading to the capital city in a few days," Crow asked. "That's right. There's nothing much to do for the next 2 days, so it's a good time to rest up," Gu Qing replied. "Come on, let's go have a drink." Crow pointed at a bar on the side of the street. "You go first. I have something I need to do. I'll come find you later." "That's fine." Crow excitedly kicked open the door of the bar, walked in, and loudly called out, "Give this lady some good liquor." The door closed. Her voice couldn't be heard anymore. Gu Qing shook her head and disappeared. In the wilderness outside of the town, he chose a place with no wind and used a formation plate to arrange 7 to 8 large-scale concealment formations. The monster's corpse was placed on the ground. "Gongzi, what do you intend to do?" Shanu asked. Gu Qing looked at the monster's corpse and replied, "When we were killing that giant wolf outside the town, a wraith appeared and came to check the situation." "That's right, what about it?" "Ramon Village is surrounded by barren wilderness. There's nothing worth the wraith's attention. The only valuable target is the young road who's about to be knighted," which means Gu Qing's gaze became solemn. "They've been preparing to swap souls from the very beginning." Chapter 14:10. 6 long legs were scattered about. Their bodies were covered in a pitch-black carapace with rotting flesh inside. Their mouths were filled with pus, forming the shape of a cross. Their teeth were twisted and sharper. These were the wraiths that were infected by the plague. At this point, Gu Shan crouched down in front of the corpse and carefully checked it again. Very good. The corpse was handled very professionally and cleanly. Everything that came with it had been taken away. Even some of the hidden runes on the body were gone. Looking at the corpse, Gu Shan appeared a bit pleased. Gongzi, what are the hidden runes you mentioned? Shanu curiously asked. A protective technique. Gu Shan pointed at a certain part of the monster's body for Shanu to see, only to see that a layer of that part had been shaved off, revealing the muscles inside. I've already seen it during the battle. There used to be some runes here, most likely the Wraith's life talismans or something similar, but now they're gone, Gu Shan said. They'd rather cut off their skin than let others see the runes. Why is that? Luo Bingli asked. To hide the Wraith's true strength, Gu Shan replied. He stood up and muttered, no protective life talismans, no weapons, no armor, nothing at all. Such a clean corpse. No wonder they're willing to give it to me. Saying so, he drew the Heaven Sword. You want to use chaotic flow? Luo Bingli's voice came from the Heaven Sword. Yes, I'm sorry, but you might need to sleep for the next few days, Gu Shan replied. Before I sleep, I want to know what exactly you're planning, Luo Bingli asked with interest. Gu Shan cleared her throat and spoke with a serious expression. The Wraiths are extremely cautious. I've already known this back in Void City. They almost never allow anyone to enter their world. In this world where time has been reversed, they're just as cautious. They only gave the corpse to me after thoroughly cleaning it up. And that's only because I've already learned their archery skills and will soon become one of their own. So this is our only chance. What opportunity? Luo Bingli asked. I'm guessing that they have a special team in charge of the transfer of my soul, and this corpse is the person in charge of observing me. My basis is that Ramon Town is such a barren place. Other than a young man who is about to become a baron, there is no other reason for them to come here. Also, when I killed the giant wolf, a demon immediately appeared, which means that he was originally near me. Then is it possible that the person who wants to replace me is also in this operation team? Why do you think that person is in the group? Luo Bingli asked. Because he has to understand everything about road and know road situation at all times. This way, after taking over Road's body, he won't be noticed by those who were familiar with Road before, Gu Shan said. Luo Bingli thought for a bit and couldn't help but ask. That is indeed the case, so you're ready to act? Gu Shan's expression was a bit cold as she muttered. I'm used to doing things based on intelligence, but the Wraiths are extremely cautious and don't reveal anything. I might be able to kill them, but it's very difficult to obtain intelligence from them. So I can only patiently wait for a chance to look for their weakness. You waited for this chance? Luo Bingli asked. Gu Shan nodded. It's a rare chance. Luo Bingli didn't say anything else. The Heaven Sword let out a clear chime. This meant that she was ready to activate chaotic flow. Gu Shan immediately acted. He took out the Chao Yin sword, Earth sword, and Six Paths Great Mountain sword and stabbed them into the plague monster's corpse, firmly pinning it to the ground. Then he took out a formation plate and arranged several restraining formations at once. After everything was ready, he raised the Heaven Sword. Chaotic flow activated. Chaotic flow. When the Heaven Sword strikes an entity, you will be able to make that entity skip its current state until the moment of your choosing. As the sword sliced through the air, the monster's gigantic body quickly shrank until it turned into a man. The man slowly regained consciousness, opened his eyes, but only saw dirt. All of his powers were restrained by several dozen formations, unable to be used or used to check his surroundings. He abruptly screamed in pain. Hard. He was facing the ground, pinned in place by the three swords, unable to move at all while enduring intense pain. At this point, Gu Shan had already taken out a black leather book, held the book in one hand while pressing the man's head with the other, and quickly chanted, "The life and death of all things is but an instant. With my power of condemnation, your suffering shall be alleviated. Divine word, cleanse, boom." A gloomy glow manifested from the man's body before disappearing in an instant. Gu Shan's eyebrows twitched and shouted, "Shanu, lawbreaker." Understood. As Shanu's voice resounded, The entire 6 paths great mountain sword gave off a faint sharp sword phantom. Crack, crack, crack. Layers of dim light appeared one after another, then quickly dimmed again. A total of 7 to 8 rays of light were destroyed. Gu Shan put the black leather book away, wielded the slumbering heaven sword, and stabbed the man's heart again and again. The man's eyes opened wide. "Who exactly are you?" He coughed up blood, his expression full of confusion. "You were the one who revived me. Why did you want to kill me right away? Who exactly are you? Why won't you even let me see you?" Sensing the other party's life force fading away, Gu Shan reached her hand out and placed it on top of the man's head. Soul reading, activate. Various scenes appeared one after another, filling Gu Shan's thoughts sea. This Wraith Realm male cultivator's memories were all taken in by Gu Shan. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. The male cultivator fell unconscious, slowly falling into a state of near death. Even after soul reading, Gu Shan still didn't stop and shouted in a low voice, "Shanu, Chaoyin, protect my body." 2 swords flew out from the corpse, one in front and one behind to protect him. Gu Shan sat down cross-legged and formed a hand seal with both hands. Secret art, sealed body in shift. Secret art, soul comes, soul goes. These 2 techniques must be activated at the same time, no mistakes allowed. Both of Gu Shan's hands formed the seals at the same time, stopping right in front of the final hand seal. His breathing stopped, his body temperature dropped, his spirit energy retracted into his dantian, his heartbeat stopped. At the same time, he couldn't help but open his eyes. Gu Shan's soul body slowly flew up from his body and hovered in the air. "Kill!" He spat out a single word. With a swing of the earth sword, the Wraith male cultivator's body was erased. All that was left was a soul shadow. While this soul shadow was still confused, Gu Shan had already grabbed the earth sword and slashed again with all her strength. The soul shadow was instantly destroyed. Gu Shan was currently in his soul form, so he immediately noticed the remaining speck of light slowly disappearing into the void of space. The final form of a soul is the speck of light, which will return to primal chaos. Gu Shan clenched his fist and shouted, "Come." A line of glowing text quickly appeared on the war god UI, frowny face, as you've received the blessings of the worlds of the past, as well as contributed the power of over 1 trillion souls to primal chaos. Primal chaos has appeared before you. Boundless illusory storms filled the surroundings. A golden waterfall descended from above and manifested around Gu Shan's body. Primal chaos. Gu Shan didn't pay any attention to this majestic sight and instead narrowed his eyes to carefully search. All of a sudden, Gu Shan once again saw the speck of light from before. He gripped the earth sword tightly and quickly said, "Earth sword, don't hold back." "Got it," the earth sword replied. A cold gleam flashed. Earth's choice. As the speck of light was struck, it scattered into specks of dust and thoroughly melted into primal chaos. Earth's choice was said to be able to eliminate all entities, but when a person dies, they turn into a soul, and when their soul is destroyed, they turn into specks of light. These were the 3 layers of the laws of primal chaos, and even the earth sword couldn't directly pierce through these 3 layers of laws to completely erase a person. That was why Gu Shan turned into a soul and killed layer after layer, killing that person 3 times in a row before finally erasing all traces of his existence. After doing all that, Gu Shan finally calmed down. He descended and returned to his body. He opened his eyes. Everything was normal. "Gongzi, did you succeed?" Shanu asked in concern. This person was already corrupted by the plague apocalypse, but now that I've revived him and killed him 3 times, all traces of him have been erased, so there shouldn't be any issues, Gu Shan replied. He looked up at the sky. It was now deep into the night, the darkest time of the day. There was still some time before dawn. "Let's go," Gu Shan said. "Where to?" Shanu asked. "When I used soul reading just now, I've already found their base, so we're going to pay them a visit and meet the wraith that's about to take over my body, Gu Qing Shan casually said. Several swords flew into his thought sea. Gu Qing Shan's figure slowly became shorter and turned into an orange cat. The orange cat recognized the direction and quickly headed into the wilderness. Looking down from the sky, its figure was like a ghostly shadow, quickly disappearing into the boundless night. Chapter 14:11. A Forest. The orange cat was sitting on top of a large tree, looking at a faraway lake. This place was very far from Ramon Village, located in the middle of a mountain range at the edge of the wilderness. Past this mountain range was another duchy. The orange cat pulled his gaze back, closed his eyes, and silently waited. According to that wraith's memories, this place was too secluded, only a simple temporary base. Furthermore, the people of this world believed in the wraiths, so the wraiths didn't set up a strict defense here. What they were most confident in was their individual ability to keep secrets. Even the one who was infected by the plague, as soon as he was resurrected, numerous defensive techniques appeared on his body. About half an hour later, the orange cat abruptly opened his eyes and looked at the surface of the lake. A wraith descended from the sky, landed on the surface of the lake, and disappeared without a trace. Seeing that, the orange cat turned around and ran, quickly leaving this forest around the lake. He stopped at the other end of the forest, took out the jade piece from before, and wiped it with his paw. Immediately, the archery inheritance recorded on the jade piece disappeared. What are you doing? The earth sword sent its voice. I don't have any usable jade tags right now, so I'm going to use their jade pieces to modify something. Gu Qing Shan also sent her voice. The orange cat tossed the jade piece into the air, then used both paws to form hand seals at it. The earth sword swung once in the air, slicing a snake that was glaring at him on a tree in half, then said, I thought you would directly kill all of those wraiths. The 6 paths great mountain sword flew out. Shanu's voice followed. The number of wraiths here is limited, so what if I kill them all? That would only alert them and put Gongzi in an even more dangerous situation. The earth sword was stumped and asked, Then, what do you think he's doing? Shanu replied, I'm guessing that Gongzi is trying to find a way to infiltrate the wraiths. This way, he wouldn't expose himself and would also be able to obtain a lot of information. Am I right, Gongzi? The two swords looked at Gu Qing Shan at the same time. At this point, Gu Qing Shan had finished modifying the jade piece, so she couldn't help but chuckle. Shanu, since when did you start thinking about such things? Shanu replied, Because I have to pretend to be Gongzi sometimes. I've been studying your expressions, movements, words, and thoughts. Gu Qing Shan praised. Not bad. You can prepare in advance for unexpected situations. I am very relieved. Being praised, Shanu's tone became a bit more cheerful. Then what exactly is Gongzi planning to do? The orange cat opened his paw to show her the jade piece, then sent his voice. The wraiths have the advantage in numbers and are powerful, but I still have to deal with the plague apocalypse and the extinct monsters, so I don't have the time to slowly fight against them then. This is? Shanu wasn't sure and asked. The orange cat raised the jade piece with one paw, formed a hand seal, and sent his voice. Generally speaking, everyone's focus is different. It's hard to force someone to care about something they're not interested in. Unless Shanu fell silent. She had no idea what Gu Qing Shan was talking about, so she could only continue listening. Gu Qing Shan circulated her spirit energy and infused it into the hand seal. Unless there's something that's related to everyone's life and death, only then would it cause a huge commotion, causing the entire world to erupt with unprecedented power of change. This world is about to fall into chaos. If I don't scrape the bones to heal myself, there's no need to even think about it. I'll take advantage of the fact that the plague and monsters haven't fully descended to throw it into chaos. Spell completion. Recording technique. This was a very simple technique in the cultivation world, capable of recording everything that happened around it. The orange cat held the jade piece in his mouth and once again headed towards the lake. He arrived at the edge of the lake and waited for a while. With the patrolling rules he obtained from soul reading, as well as the wraith he saw earlier, Gu Qing Shan had already calculated the time. About 2 breaths worth of time later, another wraith descended from above, about to enter the base. Unbeknownst to this wraith, as soon as he opened the lock seals around the lake, a cat had appeared behind him. This cat had entered the lake together with him. The lake water was cold and damp, but there was a narrow stone path that led down from the surface of the lake all the way to the depths of the lake. The orange cat followed behind the wraith, silently flying downwards, and soon reached the end of the path. This place was about half the size of a soccer field, with 2 wraiths silently hovering in the air. These 2 evil spirits were tightly wrapped in talismans, and their bodies were emitting strange fluctuations. Below them, 7 to 8 wraiths were anxiously busying themselves. They were occasionally using hand seals to control the talismans while sensing the changes within. The orange cat held the jade piece in his mouth, slowly walked forward, jumped onto a long table, and silently observed. Suddenly, one of the wraiths asked, "Sir, how do you feel?" One of the wraiths, hovering in the air with talismans all over his body, replied, "I've received the fixed guiding fluctuations of the inheritance, Snowdrift. The sole frequency and location of Barren Road of Langlois County has been confirmed. Once the inheritance reaches 75% completion, I will initiate the first soul exchange." One of the wraiths curiously asked, "Sir, he's only a baron. Why would you need to use the precious Snowdrift and personally take over his body?" The wraith with talismans all over his body replied, "You've only just arrived, so you don't know. This baron is a rare condemner. He doesn't believe in the deities and only believes in the condemnation codex. We still haven't obtained this profession, so the higher-ups are paying a lot of attention to us, so that's why." The wraith was surprised and wanted to say something else, but was cut off. In the air, another wraith with talismans all over his body loudly declared, "Attention all, Viscount Fides, 100 technique has been fully cultivated. Please prepare yourselves for a complete soul exchange." While he was speaking, the talismans all over his body began to give off fierce auras. Hearing that, the wraiths all gathered around this sir and formed their hand seals at the same time. Instantly, chains that gave off a black glow flew out from their hand seals and tightly bound the wraith with talismans all over his body. "Sir, the life-steal body swap technique is ready," one of the wraiths reported. The wraith in the air solemnly declared, "Everyone, I'll be leaving now. From today onwards, I am Viscount Fides. You will have to take care of the following matters. After I take over his body, I will go find Viscount Warren. Don't contact me for now." "Yes, sir. Very well. Let's begin." The wraith's hand seals changed again and again, shouting at the same time, "Farewell, sir." In a split second, the wraith with talismans all over his body fell from the sky and heavily crashed to the ground. 1 breath, 2 breaths. He suddenly staggered to stand up, tearing off the talismans on his body while doubtfully asking, "Where am I?" The wraiths all formed their hand seals at the same time. 7 to 8 black chains immediately became taut, restraining this man to the point where he couldn't move at all. Law seal, power seal, divine seal, object seal, contract seal. It's under control. The wraith shouted one after another. The man struggled in a frenzy, shouting, "Damn it, you lowly wraiths. I am Viscount Fides. How dare you disrespect me?" The wraiths ignored him. They exchanged glances. Someone spoke up. "The life-steal body swap technique has been successfully completed without any mistakes. We can now proceed to the next step." One of the wraiths stepped forward and said, "Then I'll do it." He drew his blade and swung. "Don't." The man on the ground didn't even have time to beg before he was sliced in half, losing all signs of life on the spot. All right, the closest target left is that Barren Road. He won't be able to meet the requirement to be replaced in a short period of time. Everyone rest up. Got it. The orange cat held the jade piece in his mouth, coldly watching everything that happened in front of him. After everyone had left, leaving only a single wraith on guard duty, he silently returned the way he came and returned to the entrance of the base in the middle of the lake. As the orange cat turned back into Guqin Shan, the ghostly shadow of night, thaumaturgy he was using immediately disappeared. Gu Shan raised the jade piece so that it could reflect their surroundings. Finally, he raised the jade piece in front of himself and solemnly said, "Everyone, I am Rode from the small village of Ramon in Langlois Prefecture of the Fran Duchy, a baron recently. I received a gift from the Wraiths during the enfeoffment ceremony. Several archery inheritances. Wraiths always give gifts to aristocrats. Could it really be because they're humble? I was very doubtful, so I tried to investigate. Just now, I've shown everyone the truth. Following this, I'll collect a specimen and use it as proof. The battle will be a bit bloody, so don't watch." He put the jade piece away, drew the earth sword and 6 paths great mountain sword, and held them in his hands. Earth sword, Now, it's time to kill. Deep inside the base, the Wraiths had sensed the abnormal fluctuations here and were quickly approaching. Chapter 14:12. Standing at the top of the stairs, Gu Shan pointed her sword downwards. In the darkness, the air around them condensed, then abruptly parted like a violent storm. A surging and vast sword light suddenly appeared. "Go," Gu Shan casually said. Boom! The sword phantom manifested from the earth sword. Like a waterfall of light that illuminated the world, it descended. Everything in its path was destroyed. Secret art, great torrent. The first wraith appeared at the end of their vision, took out a large shield made of ghastly fangs, and tried to block it, only to be erased by the surging sword phantom. The second wraith quickly formed a hand seal, turned into a purple-green wraith, and uttered a deafening roar. Then it was swallowed by the sword phantom. The roar disappeared without a trace. The third and fourth wraith wielded burning talismans at the same time, manifesting a burning mirror of light to stop the sword phantom. Boom! The mirror shattered, and they died. The fifth, sixth, and seventh wraith appeared at the same time, standing back to back as they shouted in unison. "Heaven and earth become wraith. Only I become a demon." The sword phantom arrived. Within the burning torrent, the 3 wraiths' bodies fused together to form a 3-headed, 6-armed monster, formed a hand seal with 6 hands, chanted an incantation with 3 mouths, and shouted, "True demon thought body." Countless wraith shadows manifested from its body, each wielding a weapon of various shapes and sizes, continuously attacking the sword phantom. The sword phantom slowly faded. The 3-headed, 6-armed monster stood in the middle of the road, completely unharmed. But it wasn't in a hurry to attack. Instead, it took up a stance, wielding a blade, a hammer, and a staff, wielding them in each of its 6 hands, then looked at Gu Shan. "So it was you, Baron Rode? Why did you suddenly attack us?" It asked with a confused expression. Gu Shan smiled warmly. "I came to see you." He threw a punch without turning his head. As soon as he did, a wraith appeared behind him, wielding a pair of spikes, as if about to attack. "Do it!" the 3-headed, 6-armed monster shouted. The wraith froze in place, stunned like it didn't sense anything. The sword phantom slashed through. A head was plucked off. Gu Shan held the head with one hand and pointed the sword forward with the other. "What's the point of letting others do it? Why don't you do it yourself?" The 3-headed, 6-armed monster's expression turned gloomy as it said in a low voice, "Baron Rode, you're the one who asked for it." It clasped its 6 hands together and formed a seal. A rustling sound rose from his body and was about to take shape out of thin air. Pooh! There was a soft sound. The evil and gigantic silhouette suddenly dispersed and disappeared without a trace. The monster spat out mouthfuls of blood. It froze in place and slowly lowered its head. One sword pierced through its heart, and the other pierced through its back. Swallow returns. The 2 swords intersected, directly ending the monster's life. An orange cat raised an autumn water blue sword and coldly said, "Meow." The cold light of the sword flashed. The monster was cut in half, its body scattered into countless tiny sword phantoms, turning into a mist of blood that was blown away by the intense wind. The orange cat put his sword away, turned back into a woman, disappeared into the void of space, then turned back into a sword and returned to Gu Shan's hand. It was the Six Paths Great Mountain Sword that Gu Shan let go of earlier. What a waste of so many powerful techniques. Gu Shan shook her head. They don't use their brains to kill. They're still a bit lacking compared to Gongzi. Shanu followed up. Why are you praising him? The Earth Sword muttered in a low voice. None of your business, Shanu coldly replied. Gu Shan's figure flickered and disappeared. He appeared at the end of this base. In the middle of the empty base, there was still a single wraith covered in talismans, hovering in the air. Gu Shan thought for a bit, then had Shanu stand on one side while he took out his black bow and shot at the wraith. Road, Baron Road, you've killed a member of our wraith realm for no reason. We will definitely report this to the Duchy's Grand Duke and demand justice. Otherwise, we won't let this matter rest. The wraith shouted in a threatening manner. Gu Shan's hands didn't stop. The arrows kept striking the talismans and piercing into them. Blood flowed everywhere. You want to take my body, so killing you is perfectly justified. No one could say anything about it, Gu Shan replied. The wraith froze, then suddenly became silent. So you already knew? A streak of flame flew out from his body and disappeared in the blink of an eye. At the same time, 7 to 8 talismans on the wraith's body began to burn. The smoke they gave off manifested into sharp spears out of thin air. I'm not like those pieces of trash, the wraith casually said. The spears were as numerous as a forest, reaching Gu Shan in almost the blink of an eye, making it impossible for her to dodge. Gu Shan barely managed to dodge here and there, but was still pierced a few times, causing her to spit up blood. The wraith clicked his tongue and sighed. Road, you're truly a talented person to be able to find this place by yourself. Not only did you manage to hide from all of our defensive formations, you even found out about our plan, but how regretful. After 5 breaths worth of time, a large number of experts will arrive here, and you'll die 5 breaths worth of time? Gu Shan abruptly shouted. Cut. What? What did you say? The wraith was confused. Gu Shan ignored him. Hearing him, Shanu put the jade piece in her hand away. Gu Shan's figure moved like a phantom, dodging and moving between the overlapping spear images. Compared to his previous sorry state, he seemed to have more than enough strength now. Using his bow to knock away one of the spear images, he asked, Shanu, did you record that? Shanu glanced at the jade piece in her hand, nodded, and loudly replied, I recorded everything. It's just that Gongzi spat out a bit too much blood just now. It's a waste of blood. It's fine. It's as realistic as possible. Gu Shan also loudly replied. The 5th breath's worth of time. The glow of formations appeared on the ground. Someone was teleporting here. It seems the reinforcements that the wraith mentioned are about to arrive. Gu Shan's hand moved slightly. The black bow abruptly disappeared, replaced by a dark green bow that gave off an indescribable pressure. Dreamscape Divine Armament, bow of fallen souls. Goodbye. The arrow was fired from the bow, but not towards the wraith in the air, but towards the ground. Zzzzz. Being struck by the arrow, the ground began to emit the sound of corrosion, quickly sinking and sinking. This was the power of the bow of fallen souls, capable of corroding anything. The teleportation was cut off. Gu Shan glanced at the wraith and silently took a step back. Layers of white fog appeared out of nowhere, enveloped him, and vanished. Fog Realm Descent. Gu Shan directly left this wraith base. He reappeared in the wilderness outside of Ramon Village. Shanna gave the jade piece to Gu Shan and asked, Gongzi, what do we do now? Gu Shan thought for a bit, then spoke in a troubled tone. I don't have enough jade tags. All of a sudden, he felt a burning sensation on his wrist. The blue skull pattern began to burn, abruptly giving off the voice of the world spirit. Your feet? Gu Shan crouched down and pushed the dirt under his feet aside. A piece of pure white jade that gave off a faint glow appeared in front of his eyes. Gu Shan released his inner sight to check his surroundings. Everything within a radius of several dozen miles was made of high-quality white jade. Gu Shan was a bit surprised, then chuckled. I almost forgot. The world is on my side. He waved his hands in the air, quickly cutting out several pieces of jade from the ground. processed them into jade tags, then used a hand seal to copy all the images on the jade tags into them. After making a total of 300 identical jade tags, Gu Qingshan was satisfied and stopped. Once these jade tags are spread throughout this world, chaos will arrive, the Earth Sword said. Gu Qingshan sighed and replied, "The Wraiths have been working hard in this world for so many years. Little tricks are useless. Only by bringing chaos ahead of time would this world have a chance to win against the Wraiths, plague, and monsters. But how do we send these jade tags out?" Shanu asked. It was a bit troublesome at first, but now that the Wraiths have helped me, as well as the world's spirit, Gu Qingshan tied a jade tag onto an arrow and pulled the bow back into a full crescent shape. His fingers loosened. The bowstring let out a thunderous noise as the arrow shot up into the sky, disappearing without a trace. "This is drifting snow," Shanna muttered. "That's right, this is a divine skill, able to reach a destination in no time at all, even faster than when I ordered takeout at the Federation." Gu Qingshan confirmed her guess. "I've also spent quite a bit of time in the cultivation-type world, but this is the first time I've seen someone using a divine skill to send jade tags," the Earth Sword muttered. "But Gongzi, do you have a goal? Where will the jade tags be sent to?" Shanu asked further. "I don't have a goal, but since it's been reborn, it would definitely remember a lot of people and things. So it will have a goal." The Earth Sword and Shanu both asked in unison. "That's right." Gu Qingshan tied another jade tag onto the arrow. A gust of wind suddenly appeared in the wilderness. The wind manifested from nowhere, circling around the flying arrow, as if trying to escort the jade tags to a certain place in the world. "The wind will guide the arrow," Gu Qingshan said. "The world spirit will decide where these jade tags will be sent to. Right now, it's our ally." Chapter 14:13. An arrow flew through the mountains and the sea, continuing to fly through the sky. Without knowing it, it had already flown for over 100,000 miles before it ran out of energy and fell from the sky. The wind blew at the arrow, forming an invisible airflow path that carried the arrow to a certain place. This was another continent. Under the clear blue sky, the wind blew through the endless fields. The arrow was getting faster and faster, falling like a meteor. After crossing a long distance, it was aimed precisely at an old farmer. But the farmer didn't seem to notice the arrow at all, nor did he know that he was about to die. Falling. Just as it was about to hit the farmer, the arrow suddenly stopped moving. Assassination? No. The old farmer smiled faintly and took the arrow from above his head. This seems to be a recording technique, although crude. It's quite interesting. Which child's work is this? It's quite impressive, the farmer praised. Reached his calloused hand out, touched the jade tag, and lightly tapped it. The jade tag was activated. Right away, a screen of light appeared out of thin air in front of the farmer. A narrow stone path led down from the lake. A wraith stood in front of it. The screen followed the wraith's footsteps until it reached the end of the stone path. Two hovering wraith with talismans stuck all over their bodies appeared in the screen of light. A conversation was heard. "Sir, how do you feel? I've received the fixed traction waves of the Snowdrift inheritance. The sole frequency and location of Barren Road of Langlois County have been determined. When the inheritance cultivation progress reaches 75%, I will initiate the first soul exchange." The smile on the farmer's face had completely disappeared. His eyes were filled with coldness. The conversation continued in the screen of light. "Viscount Fidesz, 100/'s technique has been fully cultivated. Everyone, please prepare yourselves for a complete soul swap. From today onwards, I am Viscount Fidesz. After I take over his body, I will find Viscount Warren." The soul swap was completed. Viscount Fidesz was killed on the spot. The screen of light quickly moved, indicating that the observer was leaving this terrifying place. Finally, the screen stopped in a forest. Gu Qingshan appeared in the light. With a solemn expression, he said, "Everyone, I am Road from Ramon Town, Langlois County, Fran Duchy. I am a baron. I've shown everyone the truth just now. The scene changed. Road. Baron Road. You killed a member of our Wraith realm for no reason. We will definitely report this to the Grand Duke of the Duchy and demand justice. Otherwise, we won't let this matter rest. The battle began. You want to take my body, so it's only right and proper for me to kill you. No one could say anything. So you already know. The young Rhodes struggled with all his might in the midst of the spear shadows. He was injured and spat out blood. The video ended. The old farmer stuffed the jade scroll into his mouth, chewed a few times, and swallowed it. There's no problem with the item, after several breaths of silence. Suddenly, someone shouted from afar, "Grandpa, the work is done. It's time to go home and eat." The old farmer turned around, and a smile appeared on his wrinkled face. "I'm meeting a few old friends today. We're going out for a drink, so I won't be eating at home." "Is that so? Then don't drink too much. We'll go back first." Very well. The old farmer watched as they left. After the field returned to silence, he muttered, "Deceiving us for so many years." Boom! Boundless killing intent erupted from his body, causing large swathes of the paddy fields to fall to the ground. Like a cannonball, the old farmer shot into the sky, heading towards the ocean. At another location, a jade scroll fell into the forest, hanging on a large tree. "What is this?" The large tree reached out with its emerald green branches to pick up the jade scroll. A screen appeared. In the middle of a lively banquet, the man wearing a crown was raising a cup of wine, happily chatting with the people around him. He abruptly pointed his finger at the sky. In a split second, an arrow appeared in front of him. "There's an assassination. Protect the king." Someone immediately shouted, "Protect the king! Protect the king!" The scene was in chaos. Fully armored guards appeared one after another. A few hidden experts also appeared, anxiously surrounding the man. "You guys, if something really happened, would I still need you to protect the king?" The man wearing the crown chuckled. "Your Majesty, this arrow, it's no longer powerful. It must have come from a very far-away place and just happened to fall in front of me." What a coincidence, saying so. The man suddenly remembered something. Everything has the will of God, then what is this? His expression became serious as he took off the jade scroll that was attached to the arrow. "This thing is a bit interesting. Let me take a look at what's going on." The screen of light scattered and appeared in front of everyone. A gloomy castle. On top of the balcony, a blood-colored coffin was about to open, but with a thud, an arrow descended from above and stabbed into the coffin. The coffin was surprised. A hand reached out from inside, searched the coffin for a bit, then put the arrow and the jade scroll away. Voices quickly came from inside the coffin. "Sir, he's only a baron. Why did you have to use the precious snowdrift and personally take over his body? We still haven't obtained this profession, so the higher-ups are very concerned." Ramon Village. In the wilderness outside of the village, Gu Shan sat on a chair in the middle of the desolate wilderness, slowly drinking a bottle of liquor. Crow brought the duck plushie and sat across from him. "I'm telling you, there really are a few pretty chicks in the bar," Crow excitedly said. But the duck plushie replied, "Whether they're pretty or not doesn't have anything to do with you right now, does it?" Crow tapped the duck plushie's head. "You perverted duck, don't." But in Gu Shan handed it 2 glasses of liquor and asked, "So what are you trying to say? Why do we have to sit in the middle of nowhere?" Crow asked. "That's right, we're having a lot of fun at the bar," the duck plushie also replied. "We might need to move somewhere else," Gu Shan said. Crow and the duck plushie both asked in unison, "What?" "That's right, we might need to go to a larger city, to the center of this world civilization. I'm not sure if you'll like it." "We will." Crow and the duck plushie both nodded. "Then let me tell you something first." Gu Shan told them about the Wraith's soul swapping. Coincidentally, at this moment, several figures gradually appeared in the surrounding darkness. Wraiths. Countless wraiths. From the forest to the wilderness, squads of wraiths appeared in an orderly and silent manner. They quickly surrounded Gu Shan's group. "Baron Road, I really must say, you're an excellent talent," a voice called out. The wraiths quickly stepped aside, surrounding a single person like a moon surrounded by stars. This person had a head full of white hair, wore a red yaksham mask, exuding the presence of someone who had been at the top for a long time. He stood in front of Gu Qing-shan, carefully observing Gu Qing-shan. For the past 1,000 years, the people of the Saint Spirit world have never tried to investigate our matters, nor do they suspect anything. You're the only one who has done so, and managed to escape all of our security measures, so you're quite valuable. And so? Gu Qing-shan asked. I'll give you a chance. Turn into a member of our Wraith realm, disappear from this world, and serve me from now on, the man said. Serve you? I don't even know who you are, Gu Qing-shan replied. The man paused, then chuckled. Very well, since the net has already been set up, I'll tell you. I'm Red Wraith. Red Wraith? Indeed, our Wraith realm has two rulers, a heavenly king and a wraith. And I'm the Wraith. Where's the heavenly king? We still haven't found him. Now is not the time to talk about that. You should make a choice whether to die or serve me. Gu Qing-shan looked straight at him and asked, I can easily make a choice, but if you're willing to let me live, that means you've given up on taking over my body, right? That's right, Red Wraith nodded. Gu Qing-shan continued. If I disappear, wouldn't that be too sudden? Other than using life-stealing body swap, do you not have any other way to replace me? Red Wraith replied, You don't need to worry about that. The scene of a minor baron's death is very easy to fake. We can guarantee that no one will suspect anything, Gu Qing-shan replied. Very well. Then I have no more questions. Red Wraith's killing intent dissipated. Asking, So you accept? I refuse, Gu Qing-shan replied. Red Wraith went silent, thinking that he had misheard. You choose death? He asked. No, Gu Qing-shan replied. Then, I said, I refuse. Red Wraith was surprised. Refusing means death. After saying so much, you still chose death? Gu Qing-shan smiled and nodded, saying, That's right, come at me. Red Wraith looked at her, then slowly raised his hand. Baron Road, go die. As soon as he said so, Red Wraith didn't attack. He abruptly looked up at the sky. Someone's coming, and they're fast. Alert! Red Wraith suddenly shouted. At the very next split second, a holy ray of light descended from above, directly striking Red Wraith's body and sending him flying. Who is it? The Wraith spread out and sternly called out. A man wearing a crown descended from the sky. I am the Roland Monarch. None of you are worthy to hear my name, the man casually declared. Suddenly, a sharp screech resounded in the air. Boom! Another figure descended from above, landing on the ground. A simple old farmer. His body was still glowing in a green light. He stood up, looked around, then smirked. So many of you, very well. Your corpses shall nourish my wheat fields. Following that, the clouds in the sky slowly scattered. One after another, figures descended from above. Several hundred of them had arrived. These people gave off an overwhelming presence, all of which descended around Gu Qing-shan. They were the true experts of this world. During the war of the past life, they fought until the very end. All of them were heroes remembered by the world spirit. In this life, the will of the world had directly sent the jade tag to them. Red Wraith stood up from the ground, looking up at the sky. So many combatants who haven't been taken over. This power is enough to sweep through the entire world. Red Wraith took a deep breath, barely managing to maintain his calm. Sirs, please listen to me. Flames of light erupted. A group of wraiths were sent flying into the sky. Their corpses turned into a rain of blood that rained down on the ground. A red-haired woman hovering in midair pulled her hand back and muttered, There's nothing to say. All wraiths must die. Chapter 1414. But I still love you guys. Moi, please subscribe to the original version. There's so many big shots here who are really talented. Their words are super interesting, and I really like many of them, like World Apocalypse Online is too tired today. Let's stop for a while. Currently typing. Please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.